Well, here it comes, everybody. Uranus permanently into the sign of Gemini. This final ingress spells the end of a 7-year season of Uranus in Taurus and the beginning of another brand new 7-year season for Uranus in Gemini in this case. So it's going to be a powerful time of change and redirectioning of our lives and everything we've known. What's it going to do in your life? I'm Kesenya, and I'm going to tell you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. Welcome to the Astro News and Weather Report for the final week of April 2026. This is Tropical Vedic Astrology, not sidereal. Do look it up if you need to. And yes, I'm a real person, not AI. We've got a big week of Astro News ahead, and then stick around for your personal forecast by sign. You can use the timestamps below to navigate to your sign, and if the message really hits home for you, friends, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share the video to help it reach more people. Thank you so much. And now let's get going. This week, in good news, the moon is giving us a reprieve from the intensity of the Kal-Sarp Yoga, which has been in play on and off again since March the 17th. In fact, it will last, the Kal-Sarp Yoga, on and off again until early July. So this week, being a bit kinder to us and not so intense, is because the moon is on the more supportive side of the nodes, helping to balance the energy just a little. Now, on the 26th of April, the sun will make its square to Pluto. This happens twice a year. Yikes. It is power struggles. It is stubbornness. These are hallmarks of this combination. You might be feeling the pressure at this time on the 26th of April as people seek to manipulate you, coerce you, or control you in some manner. How are you going to deal with this? Well, we should use the power of the sun square to Pluto and direct it into our own lives by finding ways to passionately create or get intense about expressing ourselves in healthy ways. We could be evaluating our life and determine where we need to own our own power again and take our power back where it has been lost. Or we can simply revisit our deepest ambitions and really put energy into trying to fulfill those ambitions or taking another step towards fulfillment. That's the healthy way to use this energy rather than allowing everybody else around you to control you. Now, also your identity, your identity may require some kind of an overhaul. You might be physical identity, or it could be your charisma. You're trying to zhuzh yourself up a bit in charisma, or other ways where we identify ourselves. This is the day, the 26th of April, when you can use that energy to take meaningful steps to a new identity makeover, if you like. It's helpful for that. Then also on the 26th of April is the D-Day that we're looking at in this video, April 26th, Uranus into Gemini. This is our big energetic focus for all signs this week, and so we're going to talk about it in depth in just a minute. Before that, we're going to talk about the 27th of April when Mercury will square to Jupiter. Lots of squares unfolding this week. Jupiter square to Mercury brings delays and misunderstanding. So don't be surprised if the things you thought would manifest quickly are taking a little more time than usual. Make sure your communication is as clear as can be, no beating around the bush, no hidden agendas, because you want to be completely upfront so people understand your message. And if you've got some planning to do, then this energy can be your friend. Just don't be surprised if you can bite off more than you can actually chew. Jupiter can overexpand the planning energy of Mercury. This is a tricky little square that can make us very impractical, actually, or it can even make us overly optimistic. It can cause us to adopt a dogmatic approach that rubs others the wrong way in its extreme shadow side, especially when we're talking about our beliefs and ethics. We haven't got mental space or the ability to consider another's point of view with this square. So don't be surprised if there's a lot of argy-bargy based on people standing in their dogged approach to a certain ideology, be it political, religious, or whatever. It does give a positive mindset, and so this can be a wonderful energy for absorbing the diversity and curiosity that is life. So just make sure that you make time to absorb the universe's wonder on the 27th of April. On the 29th of April, Venus will make an twice annual trine to Pluto. Now, consider the old Hollywood film stars. Marlene Dietrich, Sophia Loren, Marilyn Monroe, Brigitte Bardot. What did they all have in common? Sex appeal. That's Pluto trine with Venus, and this is an intensely attractive aspect. That's what it's all about. We feel deeply about our significant other or the person that we're madly in love with. We feel passionate also about the things that we love in life, the things that bring us joy. Desire increases under this energy on the 29th. Affection, if we don't have it in our life, we hunger for it and we lament when it's not there. So, forewarned, forearmed in that regard. This is a trine, so it is beneficial. But if you're longing for love and affection that is not present in your life, it's like a wound that gets opened up. Pluto is the ancient god of great wealth. And here, on this day, he's dancing with Venus, the ruler of finances. This can be positive. This might see us deeply researching our financial options in life, revising our budget, or making some secret investments that could really pay off for us due to this auspicious energy. It is actually a good day for making investments or setting in place a new budget that can actually turn into something worth its weight in gold down the track. On the 30th of April, we have Venus in a square to the nodes of the moon. Now, you might meet someone special from the past on this day. Some of you might even rekindle an old romance or even encounter a love from a previous incarnation, another lifetime. You may not even recognize them as such, but there might be just an inner knowing, a heart response that might be all that you pick up on. But the focus with this energy, Venus square the nodes, is learning to make grown-up, mature, responsible love work in this lifetime now. And that is going to be the button that is pushed when Venus squares the nodes. You are going to be called to step up in maturity and responsibility with love in some way, shape, or form. So keep an eye out for that on the 30th of April. 1st of May, 2nd of May, not too much is unfolding in the astro skies, so we are going to be talking about Uranus in Gemini now. This is the 26th of April. This is our big one for the week ahead. What's it all about? Well, Uranus has entered Gemini originally on the 7th of July 2025 and was there until the 8th of November 2025. That was its first entry in foray in our lifetime into the sign of Gemini. So what did you notice happening in the world between July and November last year? It's likely to be a bit of a calling card, if you like, for what we might expect for the next 7 years with this transit. So April 26th, this year, 2026, it's moving again into Gemini, and it's going to remain here in Gemini permanently until August the 3rd, 2032. Then it will move into Cancer, and that will be a whole different kettle of fish. It is going to spend a bit of time moving back into Gemini from December the 12th, 2032 until May the 22nd, 2033, when it will permanently move into Cancer. This is just Uranus's habit. It moves so minusculely throughout a year, only a couple of degrees every year, a few degrees. And so, of course, it retrogrades back over itself and then forward again. So you can be pretty certain you're going to get a backwards and forwards motion when it enters into a new sign. Now, Uranus spends 7 years at a time in each sign. So not only are we welcoming Uranus into Gemini, but we're also waving farewell to 7 years of Uranus in Taurus, which for most of us will never again repeat in our lifetime. That's it. No more Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is wrapping up his duties in the house that Taurus represents in whole sign astrology in your chart. And I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago in one of my videos if you want to check that out. What liberation, what advancement, what revolutions has he brought to that particular area of your life over the last 7 years? Now, often if we invest in the components of the sign Uranus is moving into at the beginning of his transit through that sign, like he's doing this week, we will be in a state of general profit and growth with those things by the end of his 7 years there. So in another 7 years, investing in Gemini things could really pay off for you. If you invest in them now, they will add value in 7 years' time that you can cash in on. Let me just say regarding Uranus in Taurus, I wish I could have afforded to purchase a property in the country, Taurus rules rural areas, back in 2018 when Uranus moved into Taurus. I would have made an enormous profit by now. Things would have gone through the roof. Like I could have picked up, really, in today's money, country property for a song and sold it for quite a handsome profit. So now think about this shift. As Uranus goes into the sign of Gemini, what can you now invest in that will pay off for you in 7 years' time? What things does Gemini rule? Those of us who know astrology will know what to put your money on. Just in loose terms, it could be communications, social media of some description, but progressive social media, not archaic stuff that was around, 15, 20 years ago. It will be new social media, new communications and communications devices and gadgets. It will be transportation will be something worth looking at investing in, and small apartments as well, something to invest in. I might talk about this a little further as we go along. So the last time that Uranus was in Gemini was from 1941 to 1949. Now this was a period that saw the end of World War II and the beginnings of the computer age. Fast revolutions, as we've seen, in computer technology and also in industry, because the war brought on a need for more industry at the time. There was also the beginning of a very progressive fashion age. Music took a completely different turn when Uranus moved into Gemini. And of course, all the inventions and gadgets and machinery and home appliances that came out of Uranus being in the sign of Gemini. Prior to that, Uranus was in Gemini during the Civil War in the USA from 1868 to 1865. So the last two times Uranus was in Gemini, it coincided with war. And so that was the Civil War, World War II. So a lot of people online, a lot of astrologers are questioning, are we about to experience something like this in this current age, particularly as Uranus returns to its home sign in the chart of the USA. That often coincides with USA getting involved in war. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is what's going to happen this time. It is possible that we could be forced to deal with things like ongoing deceptive campaigns by the media, which is the Gemini rules propaganda, or we might see technological warfare, things like cyber attacks, because Uranus and Gemini both have connections to cyber security and technology. But it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a time for war. Remember, we need to look at the whole picture of planetary interaction in our skies, not just a single planet in a single sign. We have to take in the whole chart and interpret it as one. For example, consider that this time that Uranus is in Gemini, Pluto, planet of transformation, is in Aquarius. Pluto was not in Aquarius in the last two times that Uranus was in Gemini. This gives a whole new different flavor to what Uranus might do, because it is being trined by whole sign trine. It's being trined by Pluto. Pluto is also out of bounds to the south, and this means, coupled with Uranus in Gemini, we might actually see a new inclusive world being made possible because of this transit. It may not be war at all. I'll talk in a minute to the fact that also Neptune is in Aries. This also has something to say. So we cannot just take it in isolation that Uranus in Gemini means war, because it may not, depending on where other things are situated. What is unfolding, as Uranus is the rebel planet, it looks like we're going to have the collective, meaning the hoi polloi, the people, being ready for revolution, which could come through class consciousness and a desire to wipe that away and create more equality, or it could come through something like grassroots cultural change from the bottom up instead of all this top-down rubbish that we've seen for far too long. You know, Gemini governs society and Uranus rules things that are new and progressive. So that's where the fight might occur as we birth a new societal age. And indeed, the Civil War birthed a new societal age, moving away from the predominance of slavery that had been in place prior to that. Then we see a new societal age after the Second World War as well. So what might happen as we enter into Uranus in Gemini this time is that the status quo might fall out of favor and they might get the heave-ho, and not before time. What is likely is that we're going to need to fight for our ideals during Uranus's transit through Gemini. This is actually Uranus-Gemini kind of energy, but it's also Pluto and Aquarius energy, and particularly fighting for our ideals is the hallmark of Neptune in Aries. Aries to fight, Neptune ideals. What an exciting time to be alive. We're going to stand for something. We're going to stand for our dreams and hopefully birth a brand new society to boot. Uranus in Gemini, let's talk a little bit more about it and move away from so much of the world astrology. It's a super fast energy, so expect things to happen quickly for the next 7 years. It's going to race by, no mucking about. Good news is Uranus is more comfortable in Gemini than he has been in Taurus for the last 7 years. So it's interesting to note that financial upheavals experienced when he was transiting Taurus for the last 7 years often lead to the societal revolutions, that take place when he moves into Gemini. One begets the other. So think about everything that's happened while Uranus has been in Taurus. It hasn't been fun. I'm sure it's been all intentional, but this is going to lead to people saying enough is enough. We've had a gutful of all this crap. This transit is about revolutions on many global and personal levels. So expect radical new ideas and inventions, new ways of approaching social networking, changes in neighborhoods, perhaps a revolution in education and with education systems. And my God, that is so needed everywhere in the West. The education is just so pathetic. It's going to go through a revolution, and I'm glad about that. This also might include a revolution of infrastructure, which is also much needed. My husband, who's lived in California the majority of his life, speaks about how back in the 60s, the population of California might have been, 12 million. Now it's getting on to 35, 40 million people, and there's been no investment in new infrastructure here. And so bring on Uranus in Gemini, because it definitely needs to happen. Transportation infrastructure, but all sorts of bridging, water, dams, all that sort of thing needs to happen. More electricity, etc. So bring it on, Uranus in Gemini. Also, gentrification is associated with this energy too. So we might see a lot of places that were, originally, going down the gurgler, suddenly brought back to life, for better or worse in some cases. There will likely be quite a bit of growth in cities, but not capital cities. We're talking about secondary cities. If you're in Australia, places like Tamworth, Geelong, Bendigo, Wagga Wagga, places like that. Not capital cities, but cities in their own right. We could also see growth with apartments. Again, these are things to invest in. Vans and motorhomes might be types of residences much more than they have been, even with the tiny homes movement, etc., because Uranus in Gemini gives an emphasis to those things which are ruled by Gemini. Potentially, this is a good time to invest in, like I said, non-capital cities, apartments, vans, motorhomes, even, houseboats and things like that, or homes near transportation routes, arterial roads and freeways. You could invest in those things. They may likely do very well. And given the state of things with the oil, It is possible that being near to a transportation route or a hub or public transport is actually going to boost your house price. So you can already see where this is going. It's very Uranus in Gemini. But also dual occupancies. Twins is Gemini energy. Two of. To have more than one. Like I said, dual occupancies, or, maybe having a couple of Airbnbs or something like that might be something you invest in. Also, Gemini is libraries, so you might be worthwhile purchasing a home near a library or a school or a kindergarten, which are also Gemini-ruled things. Investing in schools, investing in kindergartens, investing in libraries is also to be encouraged. Other things to invest in at this time include anything, as I said earlier, to do with communication, information technology, transportation, teaching, education, social media platforms, social media gadgets, trade, and retail. Thank goodness. I mean, retail could use a bit of a breath of life breathed back into it. It could mean that because Uranus is very progressive, that there is more online retail than ever before. We shall see. There might be some significant disruptions and upheavals to these things. It's not going to be a walk in the park. You'll lay your money down and suddenly your prices will go through the roof and you're in the winning seat. No, it means that you'll have to ride the roller coaster for the next 7 years, ups and downs. But ultimately, the concept with Uranus's movements is that economic growth and economic results come at the end of 7-year cycles, and these cycles are always associated with Uranus. There you have it, my friends. Get prepared. What about Uranus in the natal chart? Well, for us all, it's time to stay adaptable, curious, and open to new ideas. We need to cultivate critical thinking skills. We need to embrace change. We need to embrace unexpected events. These are potential catalysts for our growth. For individuals, this transit can bring feelings of restlessness, wanting to break free and liberate the self. There will be huge opportunities for personal growth and expansion of your knowledge, and those who invest in the growth of their own knowledge base and skill sets will receive the greatest advantages in life over the coming 7 years. So up your skill sets and your talents and, playing a musical instrument, learning a language, all that kind of thing. I had somebody comment on one of my videos a few weeks ago that they had absolutely no interest in gaining any type of higher learning or increased knowledge. And I was like, I've never met anybody like that. How strange to me. But I would say that people with that mindset may find the next 7 years particularly tough because they will probably be left behind in terms of personal growth and expansion. Uranus in Gemini wants to grow us in our skill sets, our learning, our understanding, etc. And those who resist that will tend to get left behind. So don't miss this fabulous opportunity to expand your life, my friends, and evolve. Be open, be curious-minded wherever you can be. Uranus is about liberation, authenticity, and freedom. This is what your soul will be seeking and desiring at this time, and you will take the path of the house of Gemini in your chart in order to achieve greater authenticity and liberty. Uranus brings major endings as well to life and new life changes. He will revolutionize what's not working in the house of Gemini, and anything that is working will keep on trucking, so don't fret. As I said earlier, the last time Uranus was in Gemini was from 1941 to 1948 during the Second World War. If you were born during that time, then you're from the generation of people who were very interested in new ways of thinking. This was about 80 years ago. You were a young adult during the 60s. This was a time of great societal upheaval. Free love, anti-war protests, civil rights were all part of your lived experience because you had Uranus in Gemini in your natal chart. So this next transit may actually feel like a bit of a redo of those things. They might be in some way, shape or form feel like they're happening again. You know, people who were born during the previous Uranus in Gemini transit going to enter into what's known as the Uranus return. This is a cosmic event that only comes once in a lifetime, around 84 years of age. And the Uranus return marks a period where you become even more free to be fully yourself, whatever that might look like for you at 84. So rather than conforming to whatever society deems normal, you're no longer going to be concerned with that. Who cares, you know? This is actually something that we build in growth through life. So the first stage of maturation in this, I don't care what people think, I'm going to do what I like, happens with the first Uranus square at 21, when we tend to break away from the family apron strings. Then at 42, we break away from societal expectations around, you know, I've got to have the white picket fence and the 3.5 kids and it's got to look like this. And we start to say, this is not feeling authentic to me anymore. I must do me, whatever that happens to look like. We break away from society. In the final square at 63, something I've yet to go through, we may be breaking away from certain identity patterns. You know, we've gone through midlife and, you know, we're not going to look like we're 21 anymore. And we start to say, you know, I am who I am, happy in my skin at this age that I'm at in my latter years. I am breaking away, free to be myself, breaking away from societal's expectations of image and beauty, etc. And of course, at 84, for these Uranus in Gemini people who are having their return, there is perhaps a whole of life feeling of, I'm just going to do me at this age, at 84. What does that look like? I don't care what my kids think. I don't care what my parents would have thought. I don't care what society thinks. I don't care what the expectations put on me are anymore, because I'm doing me. She has passed away now, but there was a wonderful Instagrammer named Baddie Winkle that I followed for a couple of years there. And she just dressed way out, like so way out, fluorescent bike pants and, you know, sparkly tops. And she was awesome. Absolutely awesome. And we do see a lot of people around this age starting to step into full ownership of, I'm doing me, no matter how kooky and crazy, nothing's going to hold me back. So if you are one of those people, enjoy your Uranus return, my friends. All these Uranus angular periods of life are where we step up into new understandings of who we are, and we embrace our authenticity at a much higher frequency each subsequent time. It's great. Now, at the Uranus return, your independence, which is a Uranus theme, will also come up for review. Uranus is independence and he's coming back to a reset. So are you able to still live independently at your Uranus return, or is it time to shift to assisted living? This is where one of the big questions that comes up at this time. So use this time, if this is you, to assess your health, your cognitive abilities, and decide on what makes the most sense given this new phase of life that's unfolding for you at this age. Now, as I mentioned, also the United States will also be experiencing a Uranus return. According to the Sibley chart, Uranus is located in the USA's 6th house of work and health. This means that the United States could experience changes, quite radical changes, thanks to Uranus being here, in how work is undertaken, and potential upheavals and hopefully liberation in healthcare, which desperately needs reform. I'm sure everybody in the USA watching this would agree. This is hopeful. This is very hopeful. Technology, which is a Uranus-ruled thing, could play a huge role in both these fields, these 6th house fields of healthcare and daily work. Ideally, workplace revolutions could shift some dynamics, maybe power dynamics, and put more power in the hands of the people at this time. That's what Uranus really does. The gig economy could grow as people desire freedom from the office, starting to work from home. New types of industries might emerge as well at this time, that things we've never even imagined before. But we do need to be very careful, and we're kind of seeing this happening already. We need to be very careful of people becoming obsolete as technology-driven advancement drives them out of their previous fields. This is also potentially a signature that might come to bear in the USA. So if you encounter someone who's lost their tech job, dig into your compassion. Show some love to people who are going through this kind of revolution in that field. People are more important than technological advancement, dare I say that. Now, I want to give you a few suggestions for how to max this transit's energy for the best. Firstly, be open to learning new things. Take some classes, read some books, do some research, feed your head as much as possible. Don't resist the opportunity to learn and expand and grow, as I've said. Secondly, indulge your curiosity, if you are a curious person, and let it take you to exciting, unexpected places. Don't hold back. Get in there and explore, whether it's exploring online or exploring in reality. It's time to discover new things. Thirdly, watch out that mental restlessness doesn't lead to sort of impulsive decisions. This may happen from time to time, but knowledge is power. No matter how antsy you're feeling about circumstances, make sure you look before you leap. Cross your I's, dot your T's, get all the planning done properly. Don't just bowl headfirst in. Number 4, non-conformity is it. It is the trend for the next 7 years. Don't follow the herd. Think for yourself. Thinking is a Gemini activity. Think for yourself. Ignore the trends. And if the masses are doing it, I would suggest be sure to question what they're doing very deeply. Number 5, invest in Gemini-ruled things. As I've said, education, learning, transport, community, neighborhoods, communication, I'm mentioning again here, media and technology. Advancements in these areas will prove lucrative at the end of this transit. And lastly, try to embrace technology as a useful tool, but don't let it replace real connections with people, as I was saying. Gemini loves newfangled gadgets, newfangled everything, but it also appreciates community and friendship and connection. So let's keep it real. If you're, get the opportunity to meet with like-minded others, to hang out together and create a rich social network offline, then do so. And with that in mind, I'll just pitch in here for our Solstice retreat to the Serpent Mound in Ohio. Come and join a bunch of people who think about the stars and astrology and mythology and all the good stuff, the spiritual stuff. You will love this. This is an ancient sacred site. Not a great deal is known about how it was formed, but it is aligned to this particular solstice alone. Not the December solstice, the June solstice. This Serpent Mound. Check it out online if you want to know about it. But there will be a link in the description below if you want to come spend solstice with us at this very sacred American place. Now, I'm going to go through all signs and what Gemini and Taurus is going to bring you in the next 7 years. But I want to let you know that roughly 7 years ago, I produced a series for my YouTube channel called Uranus Through the Houses. Now, although it is an old series and my presentation skills were just evolving and my technology was quite archaic at the time, the information is great and it will give you so much support during this impactful changing of signs. I'd encourage you to check out Uranus Through your particular house in that playlist to find out more. But now let's jump into what's going to happen for Uranus through these signs. So here we are with Uranus in the sign of Gemini, Uranus in the first house for our Gemini friends. There might be, by the end of this 7-year period, something very stunning or quirky about you and your image and the way you look and appear. You will go through some image-based changes. That could be simply the clothes that you wear, the way you do your hair, the jewelry that you wear. It's the outer appearance goes through something quirky and changeful. Remember, the symbol of Uranus is like a TV receptor. And this is actually very appropriate to Uranus because during this first house transit, you're going to pick up on energies first. You're going to get the trends before they happen, Gemini. You're going to know what's coming before it even arrives. You'll be ahead of your time for about 7 years, trendy and a trendsetter. Your time has come. This is actually the higher octave of Mercury energy as well. So it's more, an inner knowing and an inner sense of logic. Well, this makes sense. Of course, this is going to happen. You just can see the truth, and it logically gels with your mind during this time. Now, Uranus in the first house can be a time when you get lots of sudden downloads of information, sudden revelations, like aha, light bulb. Uranus can also give sudden rises to success that come out of the blue. If you are a Uranian person who has, Uranus on an angle or with the sun or the moon, you will be the kind of person who likes surprises, who likes new directions and brand new starts in life. And that's what this energy is going to give you in the first house. Surprises in life, new directions. I hope you're one of the people who can roll with that and enjoy it rather than the people who don't like to experience change. Being a mutable energy, Gemini, I think you're going to do much better than our poor Taurus rising friends did for the last 7 years with all the surprises and upheavals and new directions. Mutable energy likes change. It doesn't want to stay stuck. It's very flowing. So with that in mind, you'll probably do okay. Now, this is a time, this next 7 years, where often there will be events that happen that come into your life to get you out of a rut. So if you want to work with that kind of energy that to the best of your advantage, it's actually very good if you experiment more. Try new things, do unusual things, do a dive into astrology, which is ruled by Uranus in the modern sense. Look into astrology and the occult and direct the energy away from sudden upheavals. The more that you can pursue astrology, for example, or experiment with your life, try new things, move to new places, do new jobs, all that kind of stuff, the more that you can create newness and excitement in your life, the less you're going to be given excitement by the universe that will feel like having the rug pulled out from underneath you. So choose the energy that you work with in that sense of change rather than letting it just fall on top of you. This is also a time where you might start working with an interconnected system. You might get more into the internet or more interested in, working with AI, things like that. You will be more interested in not only technology, which is the 2 examples I've just given, but any interconnected system. Things like the endocrine system, you might suddenly start researching and exploring, or the biological system or the economic system. You might suddenly develop an interest in how systems work. Some of you might find that you step into a role, Gemini, as the face of some sort of generational movement over the next 7 years. And maybe that's because you take a stand for something. You become rebellious. You become very distinctive. You become quite controversial in some way. And maybe there's even an energy of liking to shock people. And it gets people's attention, Gemini. And people start to look at you and potentially follow you. Somebody who's got this position in their natal chart is Jamie Oliver. And what did he do with his, when he first rose to prominence that I can remember was when he labeled himself the naked chef. What? A chef naked in the kitchen? OMG, what is that all about? That's this kind of energy. It's shocking, but it can create a movement. Jamie Oliver is rebelling against the old mindsets about food, and good on him. Uranus also rules television or any other kind of advanced communication systems like that. So the internet, YouTube, etc. So you can have involvement with television, internet, radio, YouTube. I first started on YouTube initially as Uranus was moving through my first house. And that sort of brought on a whole lot of things that have culminated into where I'm at today. That was Uranus in my first house. You could get very involved with those sorts of mechanisms. I also had a couple of blogs, if I don't missed my guess about the actual date that I had it transiting through my first house. So yeah, I started writing a couple of blogs and I revisited them not so long ago. And I'm like, damn, these were actually really good. You know, it was my first foray into the internet and being online and having a presence. And I was quite chuffed. I thought, well done me. But if you're keen on somebody, this is the relationship axis after all, Gemini. And if you're keen on someone with this placement, it's important that you give them space and freedom the next 7 years. You cannot force people when Uranus is transiting the relationship axis, first house, seventh house, to lose their independence, to lose their autonomy because you want them with you all the time, or you need to know where they are at all times. Give the one you love freedom. If it's true love, it will last, okay? It will come back to you, or it will, be still strong enough despite perhaps having the space, and look, it can be literal space. It could be that you have a man cave and your partner, has a sewing den, and, you spend lots of time in your little various corners of the house, but you come together when you're ready to have dinner, or you're ready to, connect or watch a movie together and stuff. You have your space and your own autonomy. And that makes being together so much richer, more beautiful, profound. Uranus in the first house really encourages that kind of a relationship. Sometimes it can bring about cutting ties. If you're feeling like you are contained, your wings have been clipped, you're not being able to express yourself or be free or live the life that feels nearest and dearest to your heart, then you may actually try to break free from a circumstance. That could mean getting a divorce, it could mean leaving a job, it could mean some very radical, powerful change to your life circumstances. So that can happen as well. Again, better to implement your own expression of freedom and space in your life than to sort of burst out like, oh, thank God I'm out of here, and just destroying everything in your path like a dam that's bursting as you break free. So keep that in mind. That is what I'm feeling into in a general sense. Again, if you want more about this, check out my Uranus Through the Houses playlist. It's an oldie at the Guiding Star Astrology YouTube channel, but it is a goodie, so do check it out. And as we're Uranus in Gemini, astrology and learning going hand in hand. If you want to learn astrology, I have a number of short courses, masterclasses, and more coming out this year as this year progresses. I'm releasing many short courses from the Royal Stars Academy. If you're not interested in doing a full certified astrology course through the Royal Stars Academy, you can do one of the short courses or a masterclass. Check it out at the website. Uranus moving through the second house will be what is happening for the next 7 years for our Taurus rising sun or moon people. Now I have to say, just as you see this rolling here, I've got a new astro wheel since I came to America. It is even worse than my one in Australia, which likes to roll around and not stay put. So if you see this taking a walk, bear with me, okay? All right, hoping for the best. Uranus in the second house. Now this is not, down here in Gemini, this is not an indication for not having any money or, not being able to make a prosperous material life for yourself. Rather, this transit is about how money and possessions tend to come and go. And it can be a little bit of up and down on a roller coaster ride. Why? Because that's what Uranus is like. He's on again, he's off again. Sometimes there'll be plenty of money coming in. Sometimes it'll be wolf at the door. So it's a really good idea to have some savings on the side. As much as you can put aside for a rainy day. Be frugal, be economical, even when times are good, because Uranus will mean ups and downs in finances and resources. And if you've got something saved, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. So it's also good to insure your possessions where needed with Uranus here in the second house. Security can sometimes be compromised. So there is a need to be wise, to make a budget, to stick to it at this time when Uranus is transiting here, to be very conscious and aware of your financial situation and what that means. You'll also be in regards to making money and how you can make money, you'll be much better off doing something independently for the next 7 years, like freelancing or consultancy or running your own business in some way. Now, if you can make that happen, so much the better. You'll feel really good about life. You'll feel really good about what you're doing. But it's not for everybody. It really does depend on what is going on in your natal chart for finances, whether you are actually more suited to working for the man or whether you're suited to independence. But I think most people know when they are suited to an independent lifestyle. And if that's the case and you're feeling that pull, this energy is here to support you in making it happen over the next 7 years. Also, our investments. I spoke about this in the introduction. You can invest in cutting-edge technology, social media, scientific research, and all the things I described as I went through the sign of Gemini with Uranus transiting it in the introduction. Check that out because more than any other sign, you Taurus people can actually gain big in those sorts of areas. Now, in some schools of astrology, the second house has to do with our family lineage. And you might find out things about your family line that you had zero clue about before this transit started. Eccentric things, odd things, how your family had peculiar tastes or ideas, or in some way your family was ahead of their time, advanced, progressive, or a member of the family really sort of, was a rocket launch into modernity before it was even time. So that can come to light if it hasn't been revealed already in your life. You might be surprised at what you learn over the next 7 years. This is also a house of collections where we collect and hoard and keep and save. So what are we collecting with Uranus moving through the second house? Electronics, inventions, visionary ideas and products, eccentric art, unusual clothes. Anything quirky or different is Uranian. Airline tickets would be something that Uranus rules, and maybe you're collecting or your boarding passes or something like that. But Uranus in the second house, for me, I began what is now a monster collection of astrology books. And this would be very apt because Gemini rules books, so it'd be very apt for many Taurus people to start collecting astrology books. But that's where my attention went when I had Uranus transiting my second house. I collected just amazing library of astrology books that I love dearly. It's my prized possession. So that may be where you go to. But something Uranian will be what you'll start collecting and keeping during this transit. So just to reiterate, sudden gains may come your way, but they may be followed by losses. So save during this time. Create a sensible budget so you can weather any ups and downs. This is also our attitude, the second house, towards material goods and values. So you might be very much rebelling against certain, brands or certain, commodities. For example, you might choose to boycott brands that are not lining up with what you believe or any sort of ethical stance that you want to take. Great thing to do. Why not, Taurus? Start to put your money where your mouth is, essentially. So there's a shift in attitude about material goods and material values that happens at this time. Now, if you want to know more, Taurus, about this transit, remember I did create a Uranus Through the Houses playlist many, many years ago. It's an oldie, but the information in it is pretty good. So do check it out if you can put up with my shitty technology that I used at the time and my early presentation skills. It'll give you so much support during this time of change. And with Uranus in Gemini, it is the best time in your life to learn astrology. And if you want to do so, I offer many varied courses through the Royal Stars Academy. There's short courses, there's master classes, there's a full certified astrology course. You can choose what you'd like to do. Check it out at the website. Well, Uranus moving through the third house. This is coming for you, Aries. What is it going to mean? Well, the highest manifestation of Uranus in this house comes out as originality, original thinking, flashes of genius, flashes of insight and inspiration. This is the house of light bulb moments, intuition and knowing. It's eccentric thinking as well. You know, natally, I do believe from memory that Einstein and Copernicus both had this placement. They were ahead of their time with the way they thought. Not many people access that higher vibration, but you just might during this transit of Aries through the third house. You know, divine truth is ruled by Uranus, and with this placement in high vibration, if you're a high vibe soul, you can gain access to divine truths, divine wisdom at this time. Logical processes are very different. You know, technical thinking, scientific thinking, detached thinking, people with occult frames of mind. And this could be you. Even if most of the time, most of your life, you've not been in that mindset, that way of thinking, Uranus in the third house can absolutely shift you into that energy. And again, you might be way ahead of your time, Aries, in the way you think, or unusual thinking in some way. You might also have an unusual way of learning during this period. This is a house of, you know, workshops and doing sort of seminars and things like that. And so if you attend seminars, if you do workshops, you will absorb more information if it's not your conventional, dry, dusty kind of presentation. So look for alternative ways of learning new information in some sense. If you're a parent and you've got children with this placement, Steiner schools, Montessori schools could be good options for the next 7 years for your child with this placement. If you've got this placement natally in the chart, we often see maybe what is called learning difficulties, dyslexia, ADHD, because the mind sees things from a very different perspective than what is conventionally called normal. And the mind moves in a lightning fast way. People who learn by intuition rather than by conventional repetitive processes. And on that topic in the natal chart, we need to recognize that all the different ways of learning that are out there, all the different ways that the mind absorbs information. And for people with Uranus here, they're going to learn in really, really different formats to the usual. So we can't force. I just hate the way the education systems forces everyone, male, female, and whatever astrology chart they've got, to all sit down, shut up and listen. It's actually not what we were designed to do as individual human beings, and it's stifling human expression, human growth, and the advancement of society, in my opinion. So hopefully changes may come, and you may be part of the change, Aries, as you start to learn in new, insightful, interesting ways about new, insightful, interesting, and quirky topics as well. Now, you will find, and Aries is probably a bit inclined this way anyway, but you will find over the next 7 years, more and more, you're not going to want to be told what to say, what to think, how to behave. You're going to be like, no, I'm sticking it to the man. I am doing it my way because I think this. And you'll follow your thought processes rather than being told what to do. Now, also a love for communication, teaching, writing about Uranian things might come to the fore. What are these things? Social change, astrology, networking, the internet, technology, science. These are Uranian things. So that can express with what you're writing about, teaching about, learning about. Come and learn astrology with me if you would like to with this transit. Also, you might find that you get drawn to really, my son would say, zesty, maybe zany senses of humor, and you will enjoy sort of quirkiness that maybe you never gave the time of day to before. This is why, because the planets move and change, this is why we can watch a show when we're in our early 20s and think, yeah, whatever, and come back and watch it 20 years later and say, oh my God, that is so funny. What was I thinking last time I watched it? Because our energy that we're dancing with and interacting with changes. So Uranus in the house of humor is going to make you drawn to quirky, crazy, kooky stuff that you would never have perhaps enjoyed before. The Mighty Boosh might really be on your favorite to watch list, perhaps, things like that. Now, also, this is a house of travel, and you might be more spontaneous in your travel plans than ever before. This is about deciding on a Friday night that you're going to fly to the next state for the weekend. And so you pack your bag, you jump on a plane and go. travel plans, travel ideas just come on whim, on inspiration, and you're there. This happened a lot to me when I had this transit, but it wasn't so much flying. I would just jump in the car. I've got to get out, got to get free. I'm feeling too claustrophobic in the house, so I'm going for a drive and I'm going to spend the weekend here, there, or everywhere. Spontaneous in our travel plans. Now, this is also a house of siblings, my beautiful Aries friends. They may take on some of the qualities of Uranus, i.e. being very quirky, being very odd. That might be one expression, or they might be always moving and restless, unable to keep still for the next 7 years. They might put their foot in their mouth a lot, Uranus in the third house of siblings. Or, better still, they might start to express in a manner of genius, They might have some sort of eccentric brilliance that comes to the fore because you, their sibling, is having this transit. So they've got a lot to be grateful for, I'm sure, if that's what happens. Now, if you're a low vibe person, and I know very few people who watch my channel are low vibe peeps, but the lower vibrational tendency with Uranus in the third house is to be very distracted in your thoughts, foot in mouth problems, saying a lot of shocking things that get you into trouble and upset the apple cart. This will not be many of the people who follow this channel, but I want to make you aware of some of the ways it can express just the same. Uranus in Gemini promises it's going to bring out your boldest, most original ideas. In fact, your thinking can become very innovative, and this could really see you as something of a trailblazer and a trendsetter. If you're a writer, and many Gemini strong people are, if you've got planets in Gemini, this could be you, especially Gemini in the third house. If you're a writer, you could produce some of the most amazing work you've ever done. It's also a really good time for the mind, sort of tuning in to, as Uranus is an antenna symbolically, you'd be tuning in to information from other realms. This is one of the houses of communications with the gods. So you might get some sort of download for a book you want to write or some kind of creative expression that you want to utilize. One little forewarning for arming that I want to mention is watch out for lots of sudden changes in mood and mental restlessness, not being able to sleep at night because your brain won't switch off. Have some plans for what you'll do to deal with those situations, because this is like electricity in the house of the mind. On again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again, and you need your rest, you need your peace, you need to have some time out from all that sort of thing, so be aware. Now, friends, if you want to know more about this transit, I do go into greater depth with Uranus through the houses. It was a playlist I did many, many years ago, and that shows, but the information is still good. So do check it out at the Guiding Star Astrology YouTube page. And if you want to learn some astrology while Uranus is transiting through your third house of workshops and short courses and so forth, then I have a plethora, from the Three Amigos, I have a plethora of incredible astrology courses that you can choose to undertake if you'd like to. I've got short courses, I've got master classes, I've got a full certified astrology class. All you need to do is go to the Learn Astrology tab at my website. Links in the description below. Pretty precious Pisces. Here it comes. Something that I'm sure many of you have been waiting for, getting you out of a rut with where you live and your immediate domestic environment. It's Uranus in the fourth house. Now, this is, here I am talking to you from the USA. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I would be living in the USA ever in my life. And here I am. Uranus when it was last in Gemini back in, I think it was July to November last year, was when my husband and I decided we needed to be here for his parents' sake. And so we packed up and here we are. That was Uranus with his first little toe dip into Gemini. What is he going to bring us for the rest of this time? Well, there is an energy here when Uranus moves through the fourth house of needing to be independent and free and not burdened with sort of properties and homes and all those responsibilities and duties and bills and, maintenance and so forth that homes entail. Now, I personally love that. I love having a home. I love looking after a home. I love building and creating a beautiful home. That's just me. But Most of us are going to feel like, well, I need to be free of the burden that kind of life entails. So Gemini can see us maybe living van life or moving into a tiny home. What you don't see around this, where I'm recording this, is that I'm living now in an apartment in California. So that's a small home compared to where I was living at, in a sense. So there is this Gemini-esque quality to where we might end up living, but we're not going to be burdened with the responsibilities like we were maybe before. There might also be a need to break away from family, the family lineage, the family roots in some way. And if not break away from the family by saying, I'm not going to be like you anymore, I'm going to do it differently, I'm going to rebel from the family, it could be more that you want to just live apart from them, or you move away from them. I mean, I'm going to use myself as illustration because I'm already in this Uranus in the 4th house energy. I feel I am, a long way from my children, my parents, my siblings. They're in another country. So my family is a long way away, not because I don't want to be with them, but because my priorities took me elsewhere. So I am living apart from them. Now, what else can this bring? The 4th house is the house of the mother. And so your mother might start behaving differently with this transit. She might be more eccentric or quirky or unusual or unique in some way. She might start getting into science. Maybe she's never been into a science in her life, and then suddenly this transit comes along and she's like, that's it. I want to find out all about the scientific wheres and wherefores. Maybe she gets into astrology. That would be a miracle in my case, but maybe it could happen. They might suddenly see the value and the relevance in astrology. They may start working with the internet or get involved in some sort of social transformation or become very politically active. Many of these things could transpire, or maybe just one or two. Either way, it's Uranus's influence. Do watch out for the shadow expression, which is for your mother to become very unpredictable in her behavior, very unsettled and changeable and restless in a negative way. Now, this can also affect your personality as well. Your emotions are affected by Uranus being here. You can be very changeable emotionally, up 1 minute, down the next. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions with Uranus moving through the 4th house. It's not about being depressed or moody. That's not what it is. Just changeable. I have the moon with Uranus, so I feel like I'm already in that zone a lot of the time in my life anyway. Through life and circumstances, I'll share my deepest, darkest secrets here, I have become quite a stoic type of person, and I love stoicism, but I feel very easily affected emotionally. If something is sad, I'll get teary and I'll cry. If something is funny, I'll just burst out laughing, and I can shift from one to the other like in an instant. Uranus moon, who knew? But this is what Uranus in the 4th house can also be like as well. Ways to deal with this and balance some of those extreme emotional expressions include, indulging in those higher vibrational Uranian things, like directing the energy into learning astrology, science, discovering new things, experimenting with new things, being more progressive, exploring utopian ideas and concepts, reading about liberation and freedom, getting involved with humanitarian causes, etc. Even living in an ideological community can be a way to redirect this energy from emotional upheaval to a more Uranian expression of life. Living in an Uranian area can also be a way that this can express. If you're living up high with a view and you can see the sky, that is going to help express this Uranian energy in a much better way than having a lot of emotional highs and lows and ups and downs. I must admit that I always lived in a very flat part of Australia where I could see the sunrise and the sunset and the stars and the clouds, and that was our canvas. And I was far less emotional and full of upheavals than when I moved to an area where I couldn't see the sky. But I found that as the more that I studied astrology, the more stoic I became, the more grounded I became, and the less emotionally affected I became because I was channeling Uranian moon, or Uranian in this case, fourth house for Pisces, energy into a better expression by studying astrology. So I encourage you, if you're worried about that, Pisces, do the same. Get into astrology. Learn all you can. You can offset also the restlessness of emotion that this can bring by having a lot of gadgets or appliances in your home, at this time. Or like I said, living up high with a view, penthouse apartment, on top of a hill, near a volcano. Uranus rules volcanoes. Or in a place where there are a lot of thunderstorms. Uranus rules thunderstorms. I had a reading years ago with the great Nicholas Dejanovic, and he said to me, because of my Uranus moon, do you live in a place with lots of thunders? And now I can't seem to think about thunderstorms without thinking, I live in a place with lots of thunders. It was so cute. Anyway, like I said, the wide open plains where you can see the sky can also mitigate that emotional volatility. Uranus is a sky god, so to live in an area under a great expanse of sky where you can see the sun rise and the sun set and all the activity of the heavens is the perfect antidote. Now, be prepared. Deep breath. You may need to move around a lot for the next 7 years of this transit. Okay, so you might be settling in one place and then something will happen and oh my God, I've got to move again. Again, you can mitigate that if you don't want that by studying astrology or science, getting involved in humanitarian causes, being politically active, all that sort of stuff can help you be less inclined to move. So keep that in mind. Another way this can express is that you might have to travel a lot for work. You might also be undertaking lots of renovations and changes to your home. If you don't move, you might be, upgrading this or painting that. And because Gemini is actually a dual sign, some of you Pisces people might start living between two homes. You remember Gemini's the twins, and in many senses I do live between two homes because I've got my family back in Australia. So I'm living here, but my family's back there, and that's kind of two places. But, my residing, my domestic environment will be here in the United States. Some of you might find that you can actually purchase two houses during this time. Uranus turns that on. That could happen. I would suggest, as Uranus transits through the fourth house, to keep your eyes on the electrics in your home, the gadgets, the appliances, the wires running through the roof of your home. Be very careful. Make sure that your house is well insured against, rats nibbling the wires and then sparks and what happens. That's very important. Some of you might be including some sort of like new electrics in your home in terms of new power points, new outlets in your home. As I said before, new gadgets, new electrical appliances, and some of your appliances might need upgrading at this time so that they are safe. Do make sure you don't dilly-dally around those sorts of issues. Now, there can be a lot of rebellion, because Uranus is the rebel planet after all, against the family or against one of the parents with this transit. As I said earlier, there is a need to break away from the family lineage and be liberated from the heritage, or maybe liberated from your community of upbringing. It's not that you hate those things. It's not that they are bad for you, but there might be just a need to move apart. As I've said, I have Uranus with my moon, which is very similar to having Uranus natally in the fourth house, and I have had to break away from my Christian upbringing and its revulsion towards astrology. And, if I am shows that I absolutely 100% believe in astrology, because I've been rejected that much because of my alignment to astrology by my home community where I grew up, by my family from time to time. I love them dearly and I know they love me, but I've been rejected by them because of my belief in astrology. And certainly Australia is very conservative where I come from in Australia regarding such things, and it's just people look at you when you tell them what you do for a living and they look at you like, are you for real? What the hell? There's this energy there of non-alignment with who you are and what you do if you practice astrology where I come from. So there was a real need to sort of stand in my authenticity and truth throughout my life regarding what I believed. And part of that meant rejection from the family. It wasn't my rebellion against it, although they probably see it that way. It was more like a rejection because of what I stood for. And some of you, beautiful Pisces people, may experience that. It may not be tied to astrology, it might be tied to something else, but there may be a rebellion against family or a rejection in some sense or another by the family or by one of the parents. But you will stand in your truth as you break away, and you will stand in your authenticity. This is necessary for your soul growth and your maturity, actually. So allow it to happen. Of course, don't stir the pot and make people hate you because you're nasty about it or whatever, but be dignified, be gracious, and let Uranus liberate you. Now, some of you might find that you might find out that there's someone in the family who is very into astrology, the occult, or science in a big way. You might sort of realize that you've inherited some kind of knowledge of that type, because the fourth house is one of the inheritance houses. There's the eighth house and the fourth, and the fourth house is what we inherit from the family line, not necessarily money, but characteristics, traits, beliefs, practices. In this case, Uranian practices might be revealed as being somehow part of the family lineage at some stage. You might discover great-great-grandmother used to see ghosts or something like that. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. So that's what I'm seeing with this transit. I would also suggest if you run a business from home, Uranus transit through the fourth house could bring you a great level of success, because Uranus is making an opposition to your 10th house and making a square to the house of you. It's activating the midheaven and the ascendant at some stage through this transit, and that can really inspire and turn on success with a business from home, especially if that business happens to be related to Uranian things. Yes, this is a transit, just to reiterate, that can indicate sudden changes in your home and moves to new locations, unexpected developments with family members. It can also see a loved one deciding to leave home. And just the final thing with the fourth house is that it is a house of gardening. You might be very inspired and motivated to do something, totally eccentric and amazing, genius-like even, with a garden or with a farm or growing something. Fourth house energy. There's more that I could say about this, Pisces, and if you want to check that out, there is a whole series that I did on Uranus through the houses at a playlist on my YouTube channel. It's an oldie. My presentation skills were very, very newbie, and my technology was very, very crap. But if you're interested, there's more to explore there regarding this particular transit. Check it out. For those interested in learning astrology while Uranus is transiting through the learning sign of Gemini, I want you to know I have a fabulous offering of masterclasses, short courses, and even a fully certified 4-year astrology course. If you would like to explore that with me, I would love to be your teacher. Thank you so much, Pisces. Uranus through the 5th house for our Aquarius rising sun and moon people. Well, you are going to be just on the genius level, my beautiful Aquarian friends, and I'm so excited for you because of this. This is the house of creativity, and here comes the planet that is zany, creative, genius, quirky. All that stuff is going to really come at you in big downloads. You will really start to come up with innovative solutions and great ideas and creative output that you've never had before. There's probably a lot of excitement that you're going to experience during this transit as well, because this is the house of joy. What brings us joy, what makes us happy. And here Uranus brings an electricity to that. Like I said, an excitement to that. You'll also be quite brilliant going forward for the next 7 years with things that are non-hierarchical, non-structured, lots of creativity. This is the kind of energy that could see you moving into computer design or invention, app design, becoming like a world-class, brilliant astrologer. Lara Doncheva has Aquarius rising, so this could well be her step in this next 7 years into being one of the world's most foremost astrologers. Go Lara, if that's exactly what happens, and I'm sure it will. Also, passions and hobbies are seen from this house, and you might find that you get Uranian passions somehow over the next 7 years. A passion for science fiction stories. You've never even picked up one in your life, and suddenly they're the newest best thing that you love them to death. Sci-fi. Your passion for astrology might happen, passion for science, passion for technology. You might become the world's leading inventor in your spare time. Energy of Uranus in the house of hobbies, 5th house. If you are a woman of appropriate age, you might find that you could get suddenly pregnant. That could happen because Uranus brings surprises and shocks in the house of children. Hello. But it could also, there is a shadow energy to this. Spontaneous abortions and miscarriages can also happen with a Uranus transit here. Mars and Uranus are both planets that rule abortion. So forewarned, forearmed there. If you do get pregnant, just be careful, honor yourself, honor your body's needs, rest as much as you can for the sake of you and your baby. As I said, surprise pregnancies can happen. Pregnancies also through science. Uranus in the 5th house, IVF, or some sort of scientific intervention with a child or a pregnancy. Uranus likes freedom though. And for many of you people, my Aquarius friends, who are experiencing this transit, you might suddenly decide, that's it, I'm not going to have kids. I want my freedom. I don't want to be weighed down by the responsibilities that children bring. They bring so much joy and delight and happiness too, but they do bring responsibility. No one will deny that, I hope. But you might decide, it's not for me, not for the next 7 years anyway. I'm having some time out. And I'm having my time, if you like. Uranus is very autonomous. It's not a selfish energy, not at all, but it likes to have its freedom. And so you might choose that at this time. If you have children, you might find that your children become very Uranian. This is a great transit to have if your children are getting to the upper high school age, because it's an energy of brilliance. And your children could just, move ahead in leaps and bounds with their quirkiness and brilliantness and creativity, their genius insights. Perfect. But children of all ages will tend to become quite eccentric and, at worst case scenario, a little bit rebellious. They are, if you've got a 2-year-old, you'll be having the 2-year-old tantrums for 7 years, pretty much. I always wondered when the 2-year-old tantrums were going to end, and they never seem to with one of my kids. But that might be how this energy plays out, of course. This is, children being willful, children wanting to rebel against you, their authority figure. So don't take it personally. Don't feel like you've got the worst child in the world. It's a transit of Uranus. There'll be plenty of good stuff to counteract the rebellious energy of Uranus in the 5th house as well, such as brilliance and insight and creativity, etc. in your children. Just on that topic, when we explain the reason for things, the reason for our discipline, the reason for rules to our children, rather than just, this is the rule and I say so. When we explain things to them, then they can accept things. Uranus is a logical energy, and so is Gemini. So explaining logically, this is why, will help your children feel safer, more at ease, and less inclined to rebel. Use that logical element of Gemini Uranus with your children, and it will save you a lot of heartache. Don't feel like you just have to be the authoritarian, because that will really cause them to want to stick it to you. Children can become more independent during this time, the course of this transit. They can also be a bit more unpredictable. It's just energy. Know that it will pass. It's not forever. There might be sudden separations for some people from their children. I'm not talking in anything to worry about or in a negative way. It could be that, children, you send them to a boarding school because there's no good schools in your area. This happens quite a lot in rural Australia, because to go to a good high quality school might require the children boarding far away from the family. So that could happen for some people, not everybody. It could mean, depending on the age of the children, that your children might grow up and leave home earlier than perhaps their contemporaries do, because you're having this transit through your 5th house of children, because they're going to suddenly need more freedom and independence. I will just illustrate this with my own life, because the moon is my 5th house lord, conjunct with Uranus in my natal chart. And my children were well and truly ready to be independent from me by around the age of 15, not 18, and as is the standard in Australia. And they were ready, and I felt like I'm just obsolete here in this family at this time because my children don't actually need me. They're so competent and so independent and so capable of running their own lives that I'm just really here to pay the rent, to pay the mortgage. Otherwise, they don't need me. And that's very much the nature of this energy. Independence comes quickly to children when you've got a Uranus transit through the 4th house in this way. Now, this is also a house of romance, Aquarius. So sometimes this can indicate a lot of on-again, off-again types of relationships, long-distance relationships, suddenly falling in love, suddenly falling out of love. This is instantaneous. It's like flicking an electricity switch, Uranus energy. It can also bring in adventurous and excitable relationships into your life or make your current relationship that you're in right now much more excitable, experimentative, and adventurous as well. Now, to keep romance alive, you need to make your relationship very Uranian. Otherwise, it could end because Uranus is very flick it off, and it stays off, That's it. It can bring divorce. Uranus is a planet of divorce. So you must make your relationship more Uranian during this time. That means being a bit more unpredictable, surprising, quirky, creative, experimentative, doing things that are unexpected and shocking in a good way with your partner. The more you can bring those sorts of elements into the relationship on a regular basis, the stronger your relationship's going to grow with Uranus transiting this area of the chart. Single people might find that they're dating a very Uranian person throughout the course of the next 7 years. So scientists, astrologers, people who, maybe work in the air industry, Uranian kind of fields, of course. You can also meet partners through Uranian mechanisms such as the internet. I know that doesn't excite many people. I totally get it. But it could also be through some sort of pleasurable activity connected to a Uranus field, like, maybe you go to a UAC conference or something and you fall in love with somebody, that you meet somebody there, and boom, it's fireworks and sparks and romance. Meeting in a Uranian place. I went to a couple of years ago to the Revolutionaries exhibition at the Melbourne Museum. That would have been the perfect place to meet somebody if you were single and having a Uranus transit of the 5th house. It was all about the rebels and revolutions in society, which is what Uranus rules. So think about what Uranus rules and the places Uranus is connected with. That's where you might meet somebody under this transit over the course of the next 7 years. Now, this is a house of gambling. And there can be sudden gains with gambling, Uranus energy, switch it on, and sudden losses, switch it off through gambling over the next 7 years. So if you are inclined to gamble, please be careful. This is a huge risk, more so than it usually is when Uranus is in this area of the chart. So be cautious with financial speculations. Uranus is unpredictable and shocking and surprising. So try and liberate yourself from gambling addiction if that's something that you struggle with. Uranus is here to support you during this transit, and also be very cautious about taking risks during this transit. Now, I've got more to say on this transit if you're interested, my beautiful friends. I did produce a YouTube series called Uranus Through the Houses some years ago, one of my very first series. The technology I used was a bit rubbish and my presentation skills were very new, but the information is worth listening to. So check it out at my Guiding Star YouTube page. And also, if you are interested in putting this energy to good use in your life, learn astrology while Uranus transits Gemini. I have short courses, I have masterclasses, I have a full certified academy that you can become a certified astrologer through. It's all there for you, ready for Uranus's transit through Gemini. I do hope you enjoy. Just head to the link below. Capricorn, rising, sun and moon people. Uranus down here in Gemini is transiting through your 6th house for the next 7 years. So Uranus needs, in this placement by transit, more excitement and activity in our daily routine, in our work life. If you're in a strict routine at work or a very authoritarian kind of workplace, you might notice that over the next 7 years you get more stressed and more unhappy. So the more that you can bring variance into your workplace and lack of routine, the better off you're going to do. You need to be in a workplace where things will shift and change, where you travel frequently in some way. If you're changing offices, from time to time, sometimes you're working from home, sometimes you're working in the office, that kind of thing will go very well with this transit. You'll also tend to do much better during this transit working for yourself, especially if you're working in an unusual environment or in a Uranian field, things like science or internet-based media or with electricity or inventions, something to do with systems, maybe working with sort of progressive or humanitarian movements in some manner. These are great places to work, of course. And with Uranus transiting through the 6th house of everyday work, they can prove very beneficial for you. You might be a bit rebellious, as I've said, if you have to work in any kind of authoritarian or restrictive environment. You will not want to obey. And you might buckle over the next 7 years, bit by bit by bit, under sort of a regulatory work environment. So no government jobs for you. That doesn't mean that you can't work in a government job, but like I said, you've got to mix it up. You've got to make it quirky. You've got to make it interesting, or else it just won't last. It'll be over as soon as it starts. This is, speaking of over as soon as it starts, this is a placement that can indicate many changes of jobs throughout the course of the next 7 years until you find something that feels authentic and liberating and freeing to you. When you find that job, that's the one that will stick because it will be more Uranian. Now, if you're an employer, know that this energy by transit can make your employees a bit more willful and wayward with this placement through the 6th house. You might need to generate some sort of freedom and independence in how they are working for you in order to maintain a successful work environment, my Capricorn friends. That mightn't be your cup of tea, but it will save you a lot of headaches if you can manage to do that. This is a house of health and health issues. They can come on very quickly out of the blue, but then disappear just as quickly. Uranus through the 6th house. On again, off again, like electricity. One day you're sick and you're like, I've got to get a test and have a scan and a blah, blah, blah. And then a week later, you're as right as rain. Crazy stuff. There can also be a lot of quite rare or strange health concerns. It's not that they're undiagnosable, but it's just not your run-of-the-mill kind of health issues that might manifest with this transit. They'll usually have some sort of connection to a bodily system, such as the nervous system or the neurological system or the skin as a system. So daily routines, which are a 6th house thing, can be quite erratic, full of surprises, unexpected and inconsistent in some way. I mean, you might have your natal sun here, which makes your daily routine very steady and consistent and steadfast, which is fantastic. But Uranus can really mix that up and throw a spanner in the works during his transit here. You can find, this is a problem-solving house, you might find sudden resolutions to problems and resolutions to difficulties in life. It's like light bulb, immediately there's a problem, you get some solution. It's like telepathy from the higher realms with how to fix the situation. There's great ingenuity and originality for problem solving when Uranus is transiting here. And this can actually open up some wonderful opportunities for service, especially if you can serve, 6th house is to serve, independently. So that could be, in your work environment, if you look for some way to serve in an innovative way, or you look for progressive solutions to problems in your work environment, left of center solutions for life difficulties, it can mitigate some of the more challenging energies in the workplace that I've spoken about here. So you might find that your work moves into sort of newfangled, high-tech driven fields now. Maybe your workplace gets a new software upgrade or something like that, and it just changes everything. It's fantastic, more time saving, etc. That's another expression of Uranus in the house of work. Group work, organizations, or labor unions may play a more significant role in your working life as Uranus transits here. And you might also find interesting employment opportunities through your social circle. Uranus in Gemini, of course, can mean that maybe new job opportunities come through friends or connections. On the flip side, Uranus could bring an interest in really alternative health practices. And there's nothing wrong with trying new things. There's nothing wrong with trying anything alternative. And by alternative, I just mean not mainstream medicine. You know, herbalism, acupuncture, anything to do with electricity, you know, what is it called? Bioresonance testing. I love that stuff, you know. That's so Uranian, of course. It's working with your body's electricity. So do check out some of those more alternative, left of center health practices, because they will actually probably have much more effect on your body and your well-being than the mainstream stuff while Uranus is transiting through your 6th house. Now, guys, if you're interested in more information about Uranus transiting through the 6th house, I have a YouTube playlist that I developed a long time ago, about 7 years ago actually. It's an old series, but the information is still good. If you can put up with my bad equipment that I recorded with and my very early presentation skills, then there will be a lot of information in that playlist to support your life. Check it out, links in the description. And for anybody interested in learning astrology from me, you know, I have so much to offer while Uranus is here in Gemini. Masterclasses in various fields of astrology. Maybe I should name some. Karmic astrology, financial astrology, Arabic parts, fixed stars, you name it. It's all there. Masterclasses. I also have short courses. I also have a fully certified astrology school, 4 years long. Come and join and meet some wonderful, wonderful astro lovers all over the world who are enjoying the Royal Stars Academy. So check it out. Links in the description if you want to learn astrology and apply it to your life over the next 7 years. Well, my sexy Sagittarius friends, this is going to be such an interesting 7-year period for you, because you have Uranus moving through an angular house, your 7th house. Now, I'm going to lay it on the line very bluntly here. Oftentimes, this is a placement for divorce or sudden out of the blue separations. Let me just say, that is not going to happen to all of you Sagittarius people. It will only happen to people who are walking on eggshells in their relationship, who are just longing to burst out and break free. If your relationship is healthy, Uranus is going to express in some very different ways. So let's take a look at all of these scenarios. When Uranus gets a triggering as he moves through the 7th house, it's going to, when Uranus triggers your descendant as he moves through the 7th house, he can give a clean break from any contract. And suddenly, marriage is a contract, but then so is business partnerships, so is a consultancy contract. Obviously, life is full of many, many contracts. And for Uranus people, there could be some break that happens suddenly. Also, you may be feeling, Uranus, that you just can't do codependency. You want your partner to be free and liberated, because maybe their neediness and their dependency on you is just draining your soul. I mean, let's face it, Uranus is a very freedom-loving kind of energy just by nature. So this is kind of like emphasizing Uranus's need for freedom. And if you're with a partner that is stifling your freedom, your ability to be you, go where you want, do what you want, then it's time for a change. And that's one of the reasons that perhaps a divorce or a break in a contract might be triggered relationally. But it's also codependency in a business partnership. If you're doing all the work and the other person's not pulling their weight and they just look to you for everything, it's like, oh, this is just too much. Enough. You go your way, I'll go mine. End of business partnership. In fact, can I just say, Uranus in the 7th house can mean that you would do better over the next 7 years without any contractual agreements, if possible. That's not always possible. I mean, life is so full of contracts all the time for every single thing. But if you can avoid a contract and function without it, things are likely to last longer, because Uranus will break the contracts. Generally, not all, but contract that is not valuable, that is not making your life better and more authentic and more wonderful, will tend to be broken. Now, if you are in a situation as a single Sagittarius person, you might be looking for partnership at this time, but likely partnerships are going to be a bit on again, off again. You know, you'll see somebody once and then you'll break up and you'll get back together a year later and then you'll break up again, and it can be like that. It can also be long distance relationships. You know, you're living in one part of the world, they're living in another. That mightn't bother a Sagittarius relationship ascendant person. That is actually very doable. I know many Sagittarius people who've had long distance relationships. In fact, David and I started as a long distance relationship. That's my husband. We started as a long distance relationship. He's a Sagittarius. And for 18 months, we dated without even actually meeting people in person. Meeting one another in person. It's very doable as a Sagittarius person. So don't be too afraid about this Uranus transit through your 7th house bringing long distance relationships. If anyone can make it work, it's a Sagittarius rising person. So there's a couple of the expressions for single people, but whoever you have a relationship with, whoever comes into your life that creates a relationship with you during Uranus's transit of the 7th house, Saggy, is going to be someone who breaks you out of a rut, who changes your life, who turns your life upside down and frees you from its limitations and its blockages. It really is somebody who gets you unstuck from the stuckness that you might be feeling. So bless that person. Now, that could be a business partner who comes in and just turns things around for you. It could be like a new lover that comes in and just sets you free from maybe feeling lonely or a time of grief or something like that. But they're going to really set you free. Those people, the people you encounter are going to be very Uranian, actually. Be very, interesting, quirky, unusual, not your run-of-the-mill kind of person. Maybe they're very scientific. Maybe they're very astrological. They are going to be Uranian, and they will bring that energy into your life. Now, if you are already in a happy, committed partnership, this energy of Uranus moving through the 7th house means that you're going to get a lot of excitement in your relationship. Things are going to get experimentative. Things could be very, lots of travel, lots of new adventures, lots of excitement, lots of surprises, for good and bad, lots of sudden blessing surprises and sudden, oh my God, surprises. It could be a wild roller coaster ride, but you'll love it, because it's an adventure with the one you love. You're sharing an exciting life together. Uranus moving through the 7th house for those of you who are not in difficult relationships, those of you who are in loving partnerships. Now, this could be a time when you find that you need, even in a loving relationship, need a bit of space, need a bit of your own time, your own social life, your own bedroom, your own man cave, your own sewing den, whatever. There can be a real need at this time for a little bit of you time. And, like I said, my husband's a Sagittarius rising. I'm in America. I'm saving up to get myself a car here, and at the moment I know that's going to be when that happens, it's going to be like, oh, okay, so I don't have to be dependent on my hubby to take me wherever I need to go, to get the groceries or whatever. I'm going to be more free, more independent. So your partner's Sagittarius during this Uranus transit through the 7th house can actually find they step into more freedom themselves in a relationship. Like I said, when I get a car, I think it's going to just make a world of difference to my experience of living here and having to depend on my hubby. So yeah, your partners, it's not only the relationship itself, but it's your partners, your other half, that is going to find they want more freedom. They need more freedom. So again, they might need their own garden to play around in, or their own bedroom because they want to get a good night's sleep and you snore too much. There is a need for space in some way, shape or form by the partner, but also by you as a Sagittarius rising person. The relationships that we have when this transit occurs, they go through a lot of changes. Now, this could be emotional changes, locational changes. So don't be surprised if a relationship can have a bit of a wild ride, not just experimentatively and adventure-wise, but locationally or emotionally as well. You might be moving a lot with your partner. One partner might have to go and spend some of this 7-year period in another part of the country for work or something like that. Or maybe one person's hosting a retreat out somewhere and the other person is having to work the daily grind. You know, like there's lots of comings and goings and lots of changes, like I said, locationally, but emotionally too, you know. So don't be surprised if it's a bit on again, off again. Give yourself some space if that happens. If you're like, you know, I just need, you know, I'm one day I'm so in love with my partner and they're the light of my life and they're everything to me. That's a beautiful, wonderful feeling to have. And then the next day it's like, I just need a break. I just need, you know, I'm going out with my girlfriends for some coffee because it's, you know, I just need to do me. That's up and down relationally, and that's okay. Allow yourself the freedom and the space to do that. You could also mitigate this energy from getting too much if you're with a Uranian partner, somebody who's very Uranus-like. So this could be somebody who's humanitarian or part of an ideological group or works with technology or inventions, somebody who's eccentric or creative or unique, and obviously somebody who is an astrologer. That, of course, applies in my romantic situation where my husband's a Sagittarius rising and I am an astrologer as his partner. But it could also look like, because this is the 10th house from the 10th, doing business together with your partner regarding something Uranian. And that is a great way to express this energy. Now, as many of you Sagittarius people know, because I've mentioned it in a number of videos over the last little while, David and I are both participating in a solstice event that has to do with mythology and astronomy and the alignment of the solstice rising at Serpent Mound in Ohio. That's happening in June. We would love you to join us if you are interested in that. The link will be in the description below. Please come and participate in this wonderful spiritual event with us. That is a great example of how Uranus is moving through the 7th house, and there's a collaboration with your partner, David and myself as an example, doing something Uranian, running an astronomical solstice retreat. Perfect. And I envision doing a lot of that with David over the coming 7 years or so, and maybe beyond that, because that's something that's been on both our hearts since we first met. So we do hope we get to meet all of you at some stage in our journey with doing collaborative work with our astrology and mythology, etc. Uranus in the house of collaborations and partnerships. This may play out for you in some way, may not be with astrology. It could be, you know, you collaborate with someone who has the same political view as you, or humanitarian goals as you, or scientific delights as you know, you find somebody and they love quantum mechanics, and you just bond over quantum mechanics and start working together and doing a business over quantum mechanics. That's the sort of thing we're talking about. Another way that this energy could possibly express. Another thing is that we should be open to experimentation within the framework of a business partnership or a romantic committed relationship as well. Experimentation is very Uranian, and the more you can experiment and try new things and give things a go, adventures in that regard, the better the relationship will do. Now, I've said this is a business house, and it is. So trade or business can be conducted in Uranian fields. Technology, science, astrology, non-hierarchical organizations that trade or buy and sell. No pyramid schemes. That won't work. You can get involved in those things now. And those things can actually go quite well. You'll approach business during the next 7 years with a very creative mind. You'll come at things from a very unique perspective with regard to buying and selling in business. The 7th house is also a bit like Libra in that it's about diplomacy and negotiation skills. And, you know, when you are in that situation where you are negotiating or being diplomatic, you'll be very focused on creating independence for people. Even if it's in the context of a relationship or a partnership, you'll seek liberation through your advice, through your counsel for the people involved. And that'll form a big part of your counseling approach if you choose to pursue some sort of negotiation or counseling kind of a role. And a lot of people are getting into that kind of field these days too. You're a freedom lover by nature, Saggy, and so Uranus here in your relationship zone, it feels like permission to cut yourself loose. You may flit from one interesting experience to another, and that can be fun. And it doesn't mean that you're going to leave a partner. It doesn't mean that divorce is on the cards unless the day is done for that relationship already. People will come into your life out of the blue, unexpectedly. This can be clients, this can be an audience. They just show up and it's like, oh my God, but they could leave just as quickly as they come. So if you are, trying to market to people and bring in new clients, etc., recognize that this could be a bit on again, off again. There could be some quiet times. There could be some busy as or get up times, and try and allow for that. Keep in mind that there will be some dry times, but there will be some boom times as well regarding attracting an audience and bringing in clients, etc. So value those boom times and honor those boom times and the people that come in then to try and maintain things through the more dry times that Uranus might bring to a business in that regard. Now, just to let you know, Saggy, I do have more to say about Uranus moving through the 7th house, and that's available at my Uranus Through the Houses playlist that I made. It was one of the first things I ever did on this YouTube channel, and so it's a bit archaic, but the astrology information is worth listening to. So check it out if you haven't done so already, and you can bear with the caveman approach that I probably had to things back then. Also, if you're interested in learning astrology, Sagittarius, I offer 4 levels of the Royal Stars Academy that you can participate in and get certified in. But also I have a heap of short courses in astrology, master classes in astrology. I've got financial astrology, I've got karmic astrology, relationship astrology, you name it. You want to learn about it, it'll be there at my Royal Stars Academy, or actually at the Learn Astrology page on the website. Check it out. Come and learn astrology with me while Uranus is in Gemini. Scorpio, rising sun and moon people. Well, guess what? You have Uranus moving for 7 years into the sign of Gemini, your 8th house in whole sign astrology. Wow. Not only are you Scorpio rising, which gives you a very intense interest in occult topics, but Uranus in the 8th house gives you a massive increase in your capacity to understand astrology. I have to say that the majority of my clients are usually Scorpio rising or Virgo rising. Very interesting that that's the case. This is going to see a lot of Scorpio people who would ordinarily be my clients suddenly deep dive into astrology. Divine wisdom, higher knowledge is going to come flowing to them. And if anyone can take that on and incorporate it into their being in this lifetime, it's a Scorpio person. You can just suddenly know astrological knowledge and insights and wisdom intuitively, telepathically even. Secret information can present itself to you seemingly out of the blue, out of invisible realms. It's going to be an exciting time. It's a very, very exciting time. And I'm thinking of a few people who I know are just going to really hit their stride with astrology with this transit. But the 8th house is also openings, energetic openings. It's gateways. And of course, Gemini here is to bridge from one gateway to another. What is interesting is that chakras, which are gateways and energetic portals, can open suddenly here. So be aware as Uranus transits here and brings in sudden electricity into these gateways, the chakras, for example, that it could be quite sort of shocking and sudden, like your chakra opens and, oh my God, Kundalini energy, or, energy flow through the body, wow. And it can be just wowie, overwhelming, shocking, and so too sudden almost. This is also the house of astral travel, and you might find that without any effort at all, you just leave the body, go to another realm, and that can be shocking to the spirit and the soul too. So just forewarned, there's nothing to be afraid of, but if that sort of thing happens, you'll know why. Uranus, 8th house, okay, makes sense. Uranus rules telepathy. Many of you will have strong telepathic connections with people who've crossed over during this transit, or prior to this transit, of course, the crossing over. But during this transit, you will be able to telepathically connect with them, connect with people in other worlds. And if you've lost a loved one, this is a great time to just feel their energy close and their presence. I have this natally in my chart, Uranus in the 8th house, and there's been times, where I have been communicating with people who have crossed over, who are maybe, let's say, avid smokers. And I don't smoke. And yet when I would be feeling their presence close and talking to them in the divine, I would just smell smoke, cigarette smoke, and I'd be like, oh my God, it's filling the house, because it smelled like it was just everywhere. And then they would disappear and the smoke smell would go. Incredible energy. This is very Uranian in the 8th house. Telepathic connections and sort of clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient kind of experiences with the dead, 8th house. Now, Uranus, as it transits through the 8th house, can give, at times, sudden inheritances and windfalls that change your life and turn everything around for you. So it could be huge, sudden money through hidden resources or through the stock exchange that just comes like, boom, didn't see it coming, there it is. Now, that will happen mostly when Uranus is receiving only positive aspects from other planets, or even aspecting your personal planets in your natal chart by a positive aspect, like a trine or a conjunction, maybe even a sextile to a lesser extent. We've got to be aware, though, that sudden losses of big money can happen through negative aspects, like a square or an opposition to something in your chart or to other planets transiting at the same time too. Now, this is going to go on again, off again, on again, off again throughout the next 7 years. So for some people, it might mean hitting the top of the mountain, the peak, and then hitting bankruptcy the next day. Upheavals, surprises with assets. Particularly, I would suggest that this might apply to other people's money. So your partner, your husband, your wife's money might go zip or in a matter of a day. If you manage other people's money, if you're an accountant or a stock investor or something and you're managing other people's money, could be the same deal. Right up, right down. Who knows? That is coming from the aspects that are being made to Uranus and that Uranus is making to a person's chart or like a New York Stock Exchange chart or whatever it happens to be that you're looking at. Be forewarned, forearmed about this. Be careful with your investments at this time. But yes, good things can come. Sudden inheritances. Know that can be the case. But also loss of assets and mutual assets that you share. Maybe even not with a husband or a wife. It could be a business partner and your shared mutual assets. So shoring things up, making sure you know what's going on, being fully aware of what is unfolding in a business or in a financial situation with a marriage partner is essential right now. Get across it to avoid some of the potential difficulties. This could bring in, clients in a positive. If you're a practitioner in some sort of very Uranian realm, it could bring in clients who have a lot of money and are willing to just invest in you one day and, support you one day, and then everybody's begging you for a free service the next day. This is the money of your audience, the money of your clients as well, Scorpio, that this is representing. Let's move on from the financial side of things. Uranus is also transiting through your house of sex, and Uranus likes to experiment. He's very eccentric and he likes the taboo. So this can apply to your love life, to your sex life, to your intimate connections, kinkiness, experiments, taboo breaking. It can all happen. Uranus can also give sudden awakenings through sexual experience as well. It's like suddenly the world opens up for you through, revelations, transformations, epiphanies, liberation when you are intimate with somebody. It can be amazing. In fact, this is an energetic placement for really connecting with other worldly realms in the sexual, when you have a sexual experience. You just want to pray. You just feel so close to the divine when that happens. Sex can also be utilized in occult practices with this placement. Like I just said, you have a sexual experience, it makes you feel more connected to the divine, so you want to pray. Or you feel more close to the divine. But It can also help you manifest something. Sex, while Uranus is here, can bring in manifestation during this time. You can, not that you're manipulating the divine realms, but sex and occult practices are going hand in hand here, and Uranus actually electrifies that capacity. So if you're into that sort of thing, and hopefully for the good, not for the evil, then it's a quite a powerful time in that regard. This is a placement for psychic and brilliant occult students to manifest. So we're going to see, and I've kind of already alluded to this, but we're going to see a lot of brilliant Scorpio rising people, coming to the fore at this time. And, a lot of people born with Pluto in Scorpio have been the momentum behind the revival of astrology, for example, that's happened with that generation. A lot of those people, Pluto and Scorpio people, are going to really step up now as we see Uranus transiting through their 8th house, and suddenly we might see, like I said, a lot of Scorpio people very influential in the astrological and occult scenes, more so than ever before. So Scorpio, your knowledge is going to be very aligned to occult wisdom for the next 7 years. This is a quite exciting, as I've illustrated. Now, this is a house of death. Don't take this literally, unless, you're 100 years old and you're on death's door anyway, or death will probably come like that, without a blink, and boom, you're on the other side. Death, when Uranus is transiting through the 8th house, can come in suddenly and unexpectedly and out of the blue. But it doesn't mean you're going to die because Uranus is moving through the 8th house. It can be a metaphor. The large 180-degree turns around that we go through in life as life unfolds. The end of one state of being and the entry into another state of being are 8th house things. Metaphoric death. And Uranus can make those metaphoric deaths and sudden life turns around happen in an instant. Without any, it's almost shocking how fast life can change, ending one way of being, moving into a new way of being. So don't be afraid of this, but just know it's life for the next 7 years. Scorpio is going to be full of radical changes that you didn't see coming. Really fast change, really big, fast metaphoric deaths of certain circumstances in your life as you birthed into some new scenario. So Uranus is very fast. Gemini is very fast. And the 8th house is very fast. Oh my God. Scorpio. Things are going to be so speeded up in your life now. Fast transformations. Fast death and rebirth experiences. Quick connections to occult information and hidden secret understandings. Quick knowledge of hidden mysteries. It's all going to come rushing in. It's like Speedy Gonzales into your life now. It does bring, let's just go back a little bit here and talk about finances. It does bring drastic changes to your long-term financial outlook. And that can be positive. You might get out of debt. You might be able to invest in new ventures, or you might become involved in some sort of corporate enterprises, particularly technology-related corporate enterprises. So that's some positivity that we can add to our financial analysis that I mentioned earlier. But old business ties could become severed as new business ties emerge. And for some, this Uranus in Gemini means, regarding intimacy, that you're going to have new understandings, not only new electrifying intimate experiences, but new revelations about intimacy, new understandings of your sexual self, new authentic ways of being intimate. Instead of pretending or faking it or anything like that, you're going to find and discover powerful, new, authentic, liberating, intimate experiences that just fit you like a glove. If you struggle with closeness, this transit of Uranus through Gemini can help you learn to safely merge with your partner. And it may even trigger you to start addressing maybe some traumas. This is a house of trauma to help free you. Uranus wants to liberate you and free you from the past. So those traumas can be absolutely dealt with and liberated now, as for Scorpio people, Uranus spends the next 7 years in the 8th house. Now, if you want to know more about this transit, Please know that I have a playlist available on my YouTube channel all about Uranus transit through the houses of the horoscope, more than what I've talked about here. It's an old series. My presentation skills were just evolving and my technology was very archaic, but the information's great and you'll get a lot of support for this amazing transit of Uranus through the 8th house. And if you're interested, as many of you Scorpio people will be, in learning astrology over the next 7 years so that you can apply greater power to this wonderful transit, then I want you to know that I not only offer the Royal Stars Academy, where you can do a certified astrology course with me, it's a big deal, but I also offer masterclasses. These are, like short focus courses, like I do financial astrology, I do karmic astrology, relationship astrology, fixed star astrology, predictive astrology, you name it. There are so many master classes that I have available just for you. I also have short courses if you just want to do something to just update your knowledge or fire your mind regarding astrology. There's plenty of short courses available as well, and there's something to suit every interest and every budget at my Learn Astrology page at the website. Lovely Libra, rising, sun or moon, Uranus is moving into your 9th house. And this is where he's going to be for the next 7 years. What's it going to bring you? Well, it's very, very interesting actually, because you might be exposed. Sorry, this is a bit of a wandering astro wheel. Let's see if we can get it to hold still. This is actually going to bring you into some very unusual new belief systems and ideologies. You're going to discover, very freeing, liberating concepts and philosophies for life now. Be progressive, be open-minded. You will find that you can discover so much to liberate and free your soul with this transit. You might find that you are drawn, my beautiful Libran friends, to a more scientific understanding of God, rather than a, blind faith understanding. To be honest with you, I'm a Libra moon. Ever since Uranus first did his first toe dip into Gemini, that's really where I've been heading as well. Yes, I believe in God, but I see him as an energetic force, more so than what perhaps I believed 20 years ago in my life. Astrology, it's not like Uranus rules astrology, but astrology is not a religion. It's just not. And look, I do go into that in my Royal Stars Academy, but I'm not going to go into that here. Astrology is not necessarily just a science. It's a work of consciousness and understanding for the soul. The journey of the soul is very astrological. So you will start to see all these mechanisms of astrology that really fit, and grasping astrology at a deeper level. Yes, it's part of this transit for our Libra friends. Now, you might become very attuned to scientific belief systems, and astrology is one of the very few scientific belief systems out there. But this is not about believing in science with blind faith, as a lot of people actually do. They don't realize they have blind faith in science, but they do. It's more about testing and proving. Uranus wants proof. Uranus wants evidence in the house of belief. So you'll be seeking truth, seeking examples of how astrology is real. And there's plenty of examples and plenty of evidence. And you're going to really hunt that out now and find that truth to support your belief now as Uranus moves through the 9th house. Now, this transit, my Libra friends, can see you doing things that scandalize the more traditional belief mindsets that are out there. And believe me, there's a hell of a lot of them. We think we're a more progressive, advanced and liberated society. There are a lot of people who have traditional mindsets. I'm not talking about conservatism, because I probably would align myself more with conservatism in many ways, but I'm talking about, people who, dare I say it, people who believe the earth is flat, or, people with traditional mindsets about, the solar system and that kind of thing. And you might find that over the course of the next 7 years, you suddenly discover new inventions, new ideas, new philosophies that leave people gaping like, oh my God, how can they think that? quite exciting in many ways, of course. And that being the case, Libra, if you're interested in that kind of topic over the next 7 years, I would encourage you to check out the Tychos model. I've talked about this on my channel many times before. It's a theory that purports that the sun is in a binary system with Mars, and therefore the movement of the planets is a little different to what we conventionally think about. I encourage you to explore those things. This is higher-minded, deep-diving wisdom that can leave people going, tut, 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 that's just not what science says. Conventional mainstream science. I encourage you, Libra, Uranus in the house of higher knowledge, explore, experiment, go into all different deep dives and find your truth during this transit. You're going to want to do it. It will come to you and you will be liberated through doing these things. Now, on to another topic. The 9th house has to do with father figures. And you might find, this is in Vedic astrology, that the father is seen through the 9th house, whereas the father's money is seen through the 10th house. Father figures, in this case, for Libran people, might become more progressive. They might get involved in social movements, more sort of unusual, quirky, that fathers might get involved in astrology or science themselves. The worst case scenario here with this transit is that father figures might come and go. They're in your life one moment, they're out of your life the next. Uranus is on again, off again. So that's another expression of this energy too. And that also applies to our mentors and teachers and gurus. We can't engage with them on a regular basis because they're here one minute and gone the next. Or maybe they are becoming a bit quirky or a bit alternative or a bit conspiratorial in what they believe. Nothing wrong with that, let me just say. But the things that I've described here apply not only to father figures, but to also figures of inspiration, gurus, and people that we look up to in our lives. Now, this is also a house of foreign travel. And when you go to a foreign country, my beautiful Libran people, you can have sudden rises in success and luck and prosperity. This is a house of good fortune. And Uranus brings sudden, unexpected rises, like kaboom. Opportunities come our way. Doors open. We become, it's a blessing house. And Uranus brings sudden blessing, especially if we're in a different culture or a faraway place. I'm excited. Can I just say I'm excited by this? And I'm excited for you too, Libra, because we certainly need it after some of the transits we've all been going through in recent times. So luck, prosperity, opportunity coming your way. In foreign countries, when you're there, either on holiday or you're living over there, or if you get involved in academia or some form of higher learning, it can be a source of rises in luck and success and prosperity. Now, this might be a bit up and down though, okay? Uranus, as he aspects your natal planets and points in the chart, will create over the next 7 years some squares, some oppositions, some trines, some conjunctions, all the stuff. And so there will be times when this potential prosperity and rises in success peaks. And there'll be times when it feels like a dusty, dry tumbleweed rolling by. Nothing's happening. And so be prepared that the rises in success will come suddenly and unexpectedly, and kaboom, there they are. But then there might be a complete drop down into the valley of the roller coaster and nothing's going on, You're recovering from it all. So lots of ups and downs with this prosperity and so forth that I've just described. But hang on to the good stuff when it comes and weather the storm when you go through the drier times. There also might be some unexpected shocks or surprises or sudden changes out of the blue when you go traveling or get involved in another culture in some way. So, it can be, really, really positive, or you might suddenly, things are cropping up that you didn't foresee, that you weren't expecting. Forearmed there. I need to be aware of this. This is transiting through when I make the moon my first house, which is Libra. This means this is transiting the house of visa applications, and and that's something I need to get sorted. So hopefully it doesn't mean negative ups and downs and difficulties with that for me. Fingers and toes crossed. But this is a wonderful transit for sudden, spur of the moment travel, Libra. Where do you want to go? It's likely to manifest for you. Now, be sure that you keep your documents like visas and passports up to date and handy for the spontaneous adventures that might come your way. And interest in spirituality might also take you on something of a quest over the next 7 years as well. Could be very exciting. For some Librans, though, Uranus in Gemini might mean that it's finally time to write that great work of, I was going to say fiction, but it could also be non-fiction as well. That great book. This is the house of publishing, Uranus. If you've ever wanted to write an astrology book or a science book or a book about innovations or alternative views or bohemianism, these are Uranian things. You might find that the time has come over the next 7 years, my beautiful Libran friends. Now, there's so much more to say about this transit, but I first produced a series at my YouTube channel on Uranus through the houses about 7 years ago. It's an old series. My presentation skills leave a lot to be desired, and my technology was absolutely terrible. But the information that I present is great. And so if you want more information and more support for your journey with this transit, do check out my playlist. I think you'll find it worthwhile. Also worthwhile, especially as you're having this transit through a house of higher knowledge and learning higher knowledge, if you want to learn astrology, I have short courses, masterclasses, and a fully fledged certified academy that you can invest your time in if you would like to. You know, a lot of my masterclasses are on really interesting topics like karmic astrology, relationship astrology, financial astrology, fixed stars, Arabic parts, predictions. I mean, you name it, it's all there. And you can, find something to suit your budget or your time that works for you. Check out the Learn Astrology page. Well, Virgo, rising, sun and moon people, here is Uranus moving through your 10th house now for the next 7 years. Are you ready? This is a biggie. Uranus in the 10th house by transit is a great placement for creating an independent career. Now, at the beginning and the onset of this transit, you may not be thinking about that, but maybe by the end of this 7-year period, you will be. You may want to create your own career. You might want to do freelancing or consultancy in some way. You might invent your own career. Uranus is very, very creative. You might be something of an innovator, and that might be very much on the cards. I believe in her natal chart, Lada Dunchiva has Uranus in her 10th house, and she has been one of the major movers and shakers of the online astrology movement that has been going. She's been doing it since 2011. For a long, long time. Congratulations, Lana. But for those of you who are Virgo, you may be having this by transit now and seeing yourself move into being an innovator, a pioneer or an inventor of some career that maybe no one's ever heard of before. Could be very, very exciting. Eccentric career paths can open up for you with this placement. And what are eccentric career paths? Well, often something that hasn't even been invented yet. Uranus is about getting to the trends first before they even arrive. So you'll be moving into career fields that people haven't even thought of at this stage. This is very exciting, but keep your eyes peeled for opportunities and doors to step through when they present themselves open to you. Now, Uranus is a bit of a roller coaster, I have to say, and he can bring sudden ups and downs and changes that can affect our life. But the design in that is to teach us to be more authentic in our career, in what we're doing with what we're giving to the world, what legacy we're creating to leave when we're gone. And there can be a roller coaster ride with that. You might find that one day everything's falling into place for this legacy that you want to create or this career you want to develop. And then the next day it's like, dead as a dodo. There's nothing going on. Be prepared for the roller coaster, okay? But it's going to lead you to being more authentic in your career and liberated in your career path. Trust the process, even when things seem dry. If you need a reminder, come back to this video. Trust the process, even when it seems dry. By the end of this transit, in 7 years' time, you will be so much more authentic with your career. You'll be much more aligned with what you're doing. You will feel the power and the the freedom of what you've chosen and where this path has led you. You've got to trust in where it's taking you. Now, Uranus wants to do its own thing. Now, it's not like you can't work for others, especially if you've got things in your chart that suggest that's good for you to do. But Uranus through the 10th house needs freedom to come and go as it pleases. It needs a lot of diversity. It needs very little structure and very little in the way of schedules. So if you can manage to set something up in your conventional career, you'll do so much better. For example, 2 days at work, 3 days at home. Or, I'm going to come in late that day and I'm going to stay late that night. Little structure, freedom, flexibility, and lack of hierarchy in career is what you need to go for. And if it can't cultivate in your own career, try and bring it into the conventional career that you're currently doing. Uranian careers can also go very well during this transit. So if you're an astrologer, or if you do something with new technologies or new systems like the internet or AI, if you're involved in sort of working with the nerves, the nervous system, or the brain or the skin, if you work with social media or large interconnected groups, the TV, social activism, scientific endeavors, these are all Uranian careers. If you're in those fields, you could have a very prosperous 7 years where things just absolutely take off and do very well for you. It also could mean you may move into careers associated with those Uranian fields during this time. You will also be able to move into being a trendsetter, Virgo. Someone who catches the wave at the right time. Someone who can revolutionize an entire field. Again, Lada Duncheva is a perfect example of this. She has it in her natal chart in the 10th house. She has revolutionized astrology and brought it, real astrology, not BS sun sign astrology, but real astrology. She's brought it to the masses. She's a fabulous example of this energy. So you, Virgo, will only be able to do career that feels authentic and true by the end of this transit. If you're not doing a career that feels authentic and true to you, you'll feel like you're riding the crazy wave roller coaster. And until you find that thing that feels like your truth. Bosses are also seen, and authority figures, governments, etc., are seen from the 10th house in the astrology chart as well. And bosses can become very Uranian-like. They might get very eccentric or unusual. They might be in at work one day and not in for the rest of the week, hard to pin them down because they're on again, off again. They can be very friendly. Uranus is really friendly energy. It's very approachable and likable. And bosses can become much more that way. Bravo, that could be fabulous, I hear some of you saying. Yes, they could be more unconventional in what they're doing at work and take a more alternative process. So if you know your boss's birth time, that will determine whether they've got, Uranus. Well, no, if you're their employee, I take that back. If you're their employee, this will apply to your boss. And therefore, you can, if you've got a picture project or, get some sort of project or idea off the ground, the more unconventional and alternative it is, probably the better it's going to go with your boss. They'll appreciate it. They'll get it during the next 7 years, rather than moving in sort of a more conventional conservative way. I sort of suss things out a bit in that regard first before you go pitching some radical thing to somebody who's, Capricorn, sun, moon and rising or something. Certainly, do your due diligence beforehand, but the potential for great success with something alternative and really left of center as a career or a project or, something that you're presenting to authority figures can go very well. Now, Uranus in Gemini for Virgo people for the next 7 years means career pivots in new ways, but good ways, I feel. Sudden opportunities. Uranus brings opportunities here on the angle, and it's going to take you in unexpected directions. You're going to end up in a place you never thought you'd be career-wise. My son, he's a Leo rising, he just has finished this transit, and he had no idea what he wanted to do. For 7 years, he's studying at high school. Well, maybe I'll do film studies, maybe I'll be a cartoon animator, maybe I'll do engineering. Like he explored so many options, and Uranus is to experiment with career in the 10th house. Perfect. And he was really doing that. And then at the end of this transit, right when he left high school, boom, he landed a job selling TVs. Uranus in the 10th house. He loves it. He's never been so happy in his life. And I'm so happy for him. So this happened at the end of Uranus's transit, when Uranus moved across the final 6 degrees of Taurus. And this is what might be happening for you. Career going in to places you never thought you'd be, and there's lots of experimentation leading up to that point. Let it happen. This is part of the joy of living as we discover and experiment and grow into our authenticity. Don't be afraid to be different now. Don't be afraid to stand out and take the lead in life, in career, because this actually is here to support you. Now, friends, I have a lot more to say about Uranus through the 10th house. If you check out my old playlist on Uranus through the houses, it's a really early one. My presentation skills are dodgy and my technology was really old, but the information is good. Check it out if you want to know more of what I see with this transit. And for those of you who want to study astrology and add it as a tool for your life, I've got short courses, I've got master classes in all sorts of things like, karmic astrology, relocational astrology, financial astrology. I mean, you name it. There's master classes in everything that you could possibly want at my Royal Stars Academy. And you access that through the Learn Astrology page at the website. The link's in the description below. And if you want to become a certified astrologer and make that your career while Uranus transits your 10th house of career, you can undertake my Royal Stars Academy, which is the big certified astrology course. That's available there too. Check it out. Lucky Leo. Why are you lucky? Because you're having Uranus transit through one of the best houses in the horoscope, the 11th house. This is a natural house up here in Gemini. This is a natural house for Uranus, and it can bring into your life really fabulous networks, a wide range of friends, eccentric friends, unusual friends, revolutionary friends, astrologically minded friends. How exciting for you, Leo, to have the ability over the next 7 years to connect with more Uranian, bohemian, alternative types of people. Interesting, exciting, wonderful. Uranus in the 11th house is not judgmental, and it can actually break the rules regarding friendships. And you'll have friends from all social classes, all walks of life by the time this transit is finished. Very intellectual friends, genius friends, friends with interesting progressive ideas. This is quite an exciting time. If you have at all, Leo, lacked friends over the course of your life, get ready, because they're about to come flooding in thick and fast, perhaps more than you can even handle. Uranus is a great networker. Uranus is a very friendly energy. And so this can attract friendly people to you. It can make you a better networker. It can connect you with the right people at the right time that will bless your life. The benefactors are seen here through the 11th house, the philanthropists, etc., etc. It can bring blessing to Leo friends. Thumbs up. This is also a position that can give gainfulness, but gainfulness that comes through Uranian measures right now. Social media, the internet, inventions, new technology, all of these things, Uranian things, will bring greater gainfulness. Social movements, interconnected systems, all of these things are sources of life success, recognition, popularity, and financial reward. The thing is, though, with Uranus moving through the house of our gains, he's a bit of a roller coaster energy, and this means things might not be consistent. Things could be up and down. You can have like everything comes flooding in for you, all of a sudden, and you're just sitting on top of a pile of money like you're like you're Walter White, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It's taken, it disappears, Uranus is the roller coaster. So can I just suggest, if you receive I was going to say a windfall, but it's not a windfall of money you haven't earned. This is money you've worked for. This is like a salary. This is gains that you deserve, big gains that you deserve. It will come to you, but then be wise with it, because there might come that dip into the tumbleweed city where the things are just not happening. So sit tight, When things are good, don't spend like it's going out of fashion. Try and be consistent in how you handle your money, and wise, and maybe a little even austere about how you handle money. And then you will ride the roller coaster so much better during this time, my beautiful Leos. You will also perhaps during this transit need independent sources of income. And Gemini rules many, more than one. So many sources of income. It could be that you have 2 jobs running and you're getting 2 salaries. That could be how this looks. It could be that you have many mechanisms for making money out of your career. You've got a YouTube channel. You've got an email list that brings in some sort of revenue or something. You've got online. You've got in person. There's many irons in the fire that can be sources of revenue or salary for you, if you like. This is, when Uranus is here, we tend to not go for salaries. We want independent sources of income, so it's not so salary focused. But for many of you in your natal chart, you will have things focused on earning a salary, and so that may not change, but it may not be consistent either. Back to the friendship thing. Uranus can bring in lots of wonderful friends, as we've talked about, but there can be sudden breakups with friends. In fact, friendships can be on again, off again. I'm really friendly with them one day, and then suddenly they've cut me off the next, and then we're back together as friends again. This is a house of friendship. Uranus is like electricity, flicking the switch, on again, off again, on again, off again. Friendships can happen where there's more physical distance between you. Everybody knows I'm a Leo sun. I've moved from Australia to America. All my girlfriends that I used to hang with are back in Australia. So we're finding ways to connect, having group chats and whatever, despite the distance. That's very Uranus and very Gemini, actually, to use social media and group chats and, online networking to maintain our friendships, which are now more distanced. Uranus in the house of friendship. That could happen to you too in some way, not because you move, but just because maybe a friend moves, or maybe you meet people from far away and you connect and bond with them and create a friendship with them, that sort of thing. It's also a time when, Leo, you're going to be very friendly with people. Uranus brings his friendliness into the house of friendships. So Uranus is friendly, but he's also mentally detached from people at the same time. It's such a quirky energy. But I get it. A lot of people say about Aquarius energy that Aquarians love humanity, but they don't like people. I get that. Do you get that, Leo? That's an energy that might be here. Yep, I love the people. I love humanity, and I want to do good things for society and the nation and building communities and all that sort of thing. But I don't want to get too close to people, I want my space. So that can be another expression of this energy as well. The 11th house is also the house of your immediate older sibling, and with Uranus moving through here, they may be getting quirky, getting into astrology. They might be becoming highly creative or a bit genius prone over the next 7 years. They might get very progressive. They might be looking for more equality in the world, and they might start to be a bit of a rebel. May not lead a conventional life as a result of this transit through your 11th house. That's if you've got an older sibling, the immediate sibling older than you. But all in all, your social life is about to get more exciting, Leo. New faces, places and adventures, sudden changes in friendships, and also sudden rewards and gains that you may never have dreamed possible. So I'm excited for you, Leo. This could be quite an interesting, fun transit for you. And if you want to know more about this transit of Uranus through the 11th house, I would suggest checking out my playlist, Uranus Transits the Houses. It's an oldie but a goodie. And even though my presentation skills were very newbie, the information is good. Do check it out if you want to know more. And I'll just say, if you want to know more, literally know more, come and do a course with me. This is Uranus transiting through Gemini is a great time to study more about astrology. And I have masterclasses of all varieties. You name it, there's a masterclass there for you. Or short courses. If your time is short but you want to give some oomph to your astrological knowledge, there's a short course just for you there. I also have, of course, my Royal Stars Academy, which is a fully certified astrological course. If you want to be an astrologer, that's the one to do. So check it out, my beautiful Leos. Links in the description below. Well, 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 my precious Cancer, rising, sun and moon people. You are having Uranus transit through your 12th house for the next 7 years, the house of Gemini in whole sign astrology. This is going to bring you amazing psychic abilities. Just an ability to know and understand and even get things before other people do, because it's coming to you from the divine. They're telling you, they're pulling the strings, and you're going to be in the right place at the right time faster than anybody. There is a real connection to invisible channels that comes easy to you now. And even suddenly, even shockingly, it could come in your dreams, very lucid dreams where something feels so real. Prophetic dreams will be very much happening for you over the next 7 years or so. You might even find that there's spontaneous past life memories. You visualize it, you see it, or it comes to you in your night dreams. And that's where you've been before, because the level of emotion is so strong. That's how we know it's a past life thing, because the emotion is profound. There can be sudden awakening for Cancer people of spiritual gifts that can happen too. You might suddenly find that you're clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and you never have been before in your life. Uranus opens up these portals to the divine in fast, surprising ways. It's a real energy of awakening and liberation to the higher dimensions, connection with the higher dimensions. And this may happen through some sort of shock. It could happen spontaneously, of course, as well, but it could be that you experience some kind of surprise or shock. And through that, there's this opening to the other dimensional realms. I'm trying to think of an example, because Uranus is a shocking energy. Maybe you miss it by that much, a car crash, and you're sitting recovering in your car on the side of the road. You missed a car crash or some horrendous thing that you happened to pass you by, and you're in a state of shock, like that was such a close call. And suddenly there's a memory from past life where you've had a close call in some past life before, and you see yourself there. And it brings a level of awakening and understanding, because you've been through this shocking experience that has triggered a past life memory for you, triggered some emotional experience, and you're awakened to things. That's just one example. There's probably many, many ways that can happen. Some shock causes you some sudden awareness or realization in your life. And it doesn't have to be a past life connection. It could be just, okay, you missed an accident by that much, like Maxwell Smart, and you missed that accident, and suddenly your whole life flashes before you, and you just wake up to the truth about what life's all about, and why you're here, and what your purpose is. And you radically change your life. Uranus, radically changing energy coming from an awakening experience. 12th house energy. So on another topic for Cancer people, this can be a fabulous energy for research. And Uranus is all about doing the deep dive. In this case, researching astrology, science, systems, nervous systems, social systems, economic systems, researching the effects of PTSD, researching technology and technological changes and how it's affecting society, or, what blessings it's bringing, what curses it's bringing, researching electronics or inventions, anything Uranian. Uranus in the house of deep research, private deep dive researches. That's where you might go. That's where your mind might go now. Uranus wants to innovate. Uranus wants to break barriers and introduce progressive new things. So you might be able to get some sort of career or opportunity to make 12th house things more progressive, more modern, and break barriers in those circumstances. This is like maybe you modernize a prison, or you introduce new software systems to a hospital. You break a barrier at some ashram that's functioned in a certain way for so long, and you bring some modernization that changes everything for the better. Maybe you bring some innovation to a day spa or a holiday resort. These 12th house places where Uranus goes with this transit. You Cancer people can be the energetic source of the change, because you're carrying this energy. Sometimes too, when Uranus transits the 12th house, especially in the case of Gemini here, you might really want to shock other people. in some way. Maybe you have it could be that you have some shocking realizations about conditions in the world. This is a house of compassion. And you realize, oh my God, this is what's been going on with refugees, with orphanages, with prisons, with hospitals. With a shock, you realize, oh my gosh, and your compassion, 12th house, is triggered, and you want to revolutionize those places and those circumstances. So yeah, you can absolutely bring change to those places, as I've just described. So really it's about, like I said, breaking barriers, introducing the new, being more progressive, and liberating people in those difficult places. This is the house of refugees. You, amongst all people, Cancer, are going to want to liberate the suffering in the world with this transit. I salute you, my beautiful Cancer friends. The mission is yours if you choose to accept it, and we will be cheering you on and doing all we can. Now, some of you might find out through this transit that you used to do astrology in a past life. This is the house of past lives. As Uranus transits through here, not every Cancer person, but as Uranus transits through here, if you did do astrology in a past life, if you were into it, it could be triggered again for you in this lifetime. And suddenly it all comes back to you. And you have this recall of being able to do it. And suddenly, even if you've poo-pooed it your whole life, don't know why you'd be on this channel watching this video if that was the case, but even if you had, you might suddenly be like, suddenly I manifest this occult knowledge, bringing it forward from a past life. This is very liberating, liberating you in terms of astrology. Also, this can be give you a lot of momentum to desire to give more freedom to people who are isolated, who are in institutions, like I said before, who are refugees, in detention camps, or exiled. And Uranus is a humanitarian energy. It wants to do good for humanity. And in the house of compassion like this, once again, Cancer people, you will be inspired to take that mantle and run with that. Now, also, it's a house of faraway places. And I think, Cancer, if you travel overseas during the next 7 years, it's going to bring a lot of liberation and exhilaration. It could also bring sudden surprises and sudden changes, radical changes into your life, I think for the good. Foreign travel might be full of twists and turns and maybe a bit of a roller coaster ride, but you will find that you will, by the end of this transit, be more free, more authentic, more liberated in whatever you're doing with your life because you've been in a faraway place. If you live in a foreign country, you might find that life is full of massive turns around for the next 7 years or so. And that can be good. It can be liberating you, setting you free. It can be quite compelling, this energy of Uranus through the 12th house, if you live in a faraway place or you go for holidays in a faraway place. You could also use being in a foreign place to create a lot of change, a lot of momentum in some way as well in the world and in your life. So if you're needing to get out of a rut, my God, Cancer, go for a trip to a faraway place. You will radically change your life and the rut will be seen no more. This could be very exciting, and so I encourage you, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like life needs a shake-up, take a holiday, go to a faraway place across the ocean or some other culture. You will become, and I keep sort of a bit Uranian, like going backwards and forwards with this, but I'm back to this topic of charitable movements. You'll be very enthusiastic about charitable movements. Online communities will also garner your enthusiasm, and anything that's connected to compassion, but also healing. I've talked a lot about compassionate work and humanitarian work, but healing work is also part of the 12th house energy, and alternative healing, spiritual healing, other dimensional healing, energetic healing, anything to do with electromagnetism as a source of healing is very Uranian. So you will be able to utilize those sorts of practices, and I encourage you, I'm not going to say avoid the mainstream medicine, because sometimes we need to, get our broken arm set or whatever it happens to be, but where possible, go to the alternative mechanism first, rather than going down the mainstream pharma road. I would suggest. Uranus rules, chakra healing, it rules bioresonance healing. It rules, anything alternative. It can even have to do with acupuncture or that sort of stuff that is, in the Western system, very alternative. And I encourage you to seek healing that's alternative while Uranus is transiting through your 12th house. Uranus is hanging out in your introspection zone for the next 7 years. And so this can actually make you more interested in introspective work like meditation, spiritual growth, and therapies as well. It can really heighten your prophetic ability, your intuition, and it's a good time to trust your instincts while Uranus transits here. This can also see, and also is true for the 8th house as well, but this can also see some people becoming very interested in secret groups or organizations. Maybe you want to research those groups and organizations. Maybe you want to join them to understand, well, what they're all about. What's the big deal here? This is perhaps time for experimenting with that sort of thing. So, yeah, this is quite exciting for Cancer people in a very unusual way. Now, if you want to know more about Uranus's transit through the 12th house, Cancer, I'd suggest checking out my Uranus Through the Houses playlist at my YouTube channel. But I'll just let you know it's pretty old, and my equipment was pretty dodgy, and my presentation was very early on, shall we say. But the information's gold, so check it out if you want to know more about this transit. And for anybody who is interested in learning and researching Uranus in the 12th house, more about astrology, I offer some fabulous courses through my website, my Learn Astrology page. This includes short courses for those who just want to dip their toes in things. It also includes master classes in the nodes and eclipses and I'm not doing medical astrology, financial astrology, karmic astrology. It's all there if you want to learn all about these wonderful resources for life. If you want to become a professional astrologer as well, or just study for your own delight and connect with other like-minded astro lovers, then the Royal Stars Academy is also a very special course you might like to check out too. But I hope you check it out. The link's in the description below. Thanks for being here, everybody, for this week's fabulous astro weather. It's going to be great. Uranus in Gemini, bring it on. I hope you're ready. I am, and I'll catch you next week with the astro weather again.